Welcome to the Intercut podcast, the weekly show going over the TV, movies, and entertainment that people can't cut away from. I am your co-host, Zachary Shevich, and joining me, he's back on the prison blogs. It's Arturo Zurita.
You know, with as much as you loved Eternals, I figured there was going to be an Eternals joke there. Yeah, 10 to choose from, another 2 that were cut out. There's plenty of stuff right there, Zach. But
Yeah.
how have you been? Been a little bit of a minute, but
Yeah.
we just got done watching Eternals, speaking of. It was so long. You
It
just
took
got out of the
us
theater.
all this time just to get through the end of the latest Marvel movie, and unfortunately that meant that we had a little bit of an interruption, but we had to get through Eternals to bring you our thoughts, and we're excited to share them. A lot of stuff we're excited to talk about this week. You had some adventures at the Chicago International Film Festival. I, of course, have seen a few of those movies, so I'm happy to finally talk to you about your thoughts on Drive My Car and Come On, Come On and Worst Person in the World. So we'll get into all those, but you also saw Dune, which we need to talk about. You saw The Last Duel, which we need to talk about. And probably should get around to Eternals. So we'll do all that in just a moment. But a reminder that if you're not subscribed to the Intercut podcast, either subscribe to our audio feed available on most podcatchers or the video feed available at youtube.com/intercutpod. Subscribe to both, why don't you? And then follow us on our social media platforms, whether that's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We are at IntercutPod. That's at IntercutPod. That's short for podcast. You can also find us on Patreon at IntercutPod and support the show for as little as $1 per month. And another reminder to leave us those 5-star reviews. Anytime you leave a 5-star review on Apple iTunes and help boost the podcast and show and spread the ratings around to boost our show, it makes me happier than whenever one of the dudes from Thrones shouted Cersei in Eternals. I couldn't get over that,
Eternal
man.
gets its wings.
Yeah, and Eternal definitely gets its wings every time you
Celestial
give us
gets
a
its planet.
5-star review. So shout out to those of you who've given us a 5-star review in the past,
Appreciate you.
or who will do it now that you've heard my request. It's been a little bit since we got a good 5-star review to read on the show. So leave some thoughts, and I'll read it out on the next podcast. Anyway, let's get into the movies. We're gonna start this podcast out the way we start out most of our podcasts, with what we are watching. Art, are we gonna get into it with Eternals first, or what do you think?
I saw Dune 5 times in theaters, and I feel like I
Dune's
still
good.
haven't even seen it.
I like Dune a lot.
Dune is a fantastic movie. Denny, one of the best directors out there. I was very excited for this one. Look, Zach, did you see it in Lincoln Square like I asked you to?
I unfortunately, it's the New York press screening. I kind of didn't have a say over where we did it. But I do miss that opportunity, because it is a movie that really rewards that big screen experience. I've been trying to convince Caitlin to do it with me, but I think Eternals might have kicked it out of that theater by now. So
it did. But you had 2 weeks, Zach. Here, let me nerd out a little bit here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Dune, as everybody knows, is the space epic from the one and only Denis Villeneuve. Have you watching Tenet at home? You have not experienced it the way that Nolan was telling you, going all film boyish and
my bad about that. I think we had a little bit of a sound glitch when we started getting into Eternals. Can you take it back like 2 minutes to your thoughts?
For sure. Dune is a masterpiece, and y'all need to go watch it. That's pretty much what I was getting at. And at this point in time, I believe that Austin, Texas, is going to be the only one that's playing it in the correct ratio or what it's supposed to be. They're going to be bringing it back. I'm looking to make the road trip because, like I said, I've seen it multiple times in its IMAX format, but not in its true full 143 scope. And there's a specific shot where you see a spaceship. What you're supposed to see is above that spaceship, and I have yet to see that. So I feel like I have not experienced the movie. Out of all the IMAX stuff that's out there, I'm sure as some of you may have seen, there was actually for Eternals, Chloe had submitted a bunch of Denny's stills for what she wanted to do for the movie.
Yeah.
And then it was Denny who talked to her and said, "Hey, you know, milk them. They got all the money. Try to shoot as much of this as you can in IMAX." So I know that a lot of Eternals is supposed to be filmed in what is it, 1:9, and then when you go up to space, because she wanted to show the Celestials and she wanted to, you know, use this format of IMAX storytelling, it goes even wider to the 143 to show you like how powerful these beings were supposed to be. So I'm just excited for more IMAX showings to be out there. I know they created new cameras. That they were able to use for Dune. There's this new RELF camera that's out there. Even Antlers used a camera that was very similar, the Sony Venice. So, as you know, I'm a geek for. I love IMAX completely. So being able to have a movie, because you know I was complaining about No Time to Die, how that only had like 2 sequences, which I loved, but it only had 2 sequences, and the rest of it, you know, I'm just seeing black bars on the IMAX screen. This movie had 73 glorious minutes of it. But it's still not the 73 minutes of the big version that I still need to go see. But overall, I thought the story is very interesting. I like the poetic way that he kind of like approached it. It's very rhythmic in the way that he approaches the visions of Paul and how Paul's supposed to be this messiah for these people. I know there was a lot of critiques against the movie as well. So I'm very excited for part 2 because I feel like part 1 even answered a lot of the critiques people had for this movie. But I thought the performances all around were fantastic. Without a doubt, Javier Bardem.
Yeah.
Kills it.
I mean, that's the thing that is so cool about when you're working on this scale and you actually have a filmmaker who knows how to utilize their actors, is that you can bring in Javier Bardem and he can change the balance in a room with just that gravitas and that deep voice. Like, how do you not feel it when you get that deep voice booming through theater speakers, you know?
Another one would have been, you know, just the way that he approached it is that there's so many deleted scenes, and Denny's a big person on not doing director's cuts or any of that. He needs to make one for this, dude. There was a thing with Brolin, and Brolin's character being kind of like the older guy who helps train Paul, and there was a specific moment where he got called over by Denny at 4 o'clock in the morning or something like that. He's like, "We need to come over. We need to rewrite this scene," and they had worked out all these different things to build up this whole backstory of how bad the Harkonnens were to him, all these different things, just so he could say that brutal line. They ended up cutting out the entire speech, but the whole point was just so he can say that brutal line. And Zach, the 5 times that I saw it in IMAX, brutal it was. It was absolutely fantastic. I love what he got out of all the performances that he wanted here. You could tell it's Denny in his sandbox. We didn't get to talk too much of the score, bro. So the score for
Hans
this
Zimmer.
movie has been one of the most divided things that I've seen.
Yeah, I'm surprised because there are people who are just obsessed with it, but I've heard a few people who are like, "All right, the era of Hans Zimmer is over," and I don't know. I don't feel that way. I think it's really appropriate, and it's kind of a bit of an unconventional score at times. You know, the ways that it is maybe less melodic and more just atmospheric in terms of the sound it's giving you, but it works for me. What did you think about the score?
He had said that he had never seen the previous Dune. He had never seen the miniseries because he was just as big of a fan as Dune. Both these dudes grew up, Denny and Hans, reading this book, wanting to make this adaptation. The man called out Star Wars for using horns because he says horns wouldn't exist in space. So the dude created his own instruments for this score. Created a whole language with the guy who did the languages for Game of Thrones to make it. And then he himself apologized for how out there the score was. And he said nobody would have let him get away with it if it wasn't for Denny knowing how passionate he was, for him being the first creative that he called on. And I like it. I don't hate it. I do think it's overbearing, though. I do see people's points with it. There are moments where this thing is just blaring through the speakers. But no, I really like what he was going for. Because, again, he had this whole concept of, like, you know, that bagpipes would be the only instrument that would make it into space all these years into the future. But this whole idea of wanting to really have a voice carry the song and the themes of the movie. And I also love how even before the second one got greenlit, he was already talking about him sending concepts to Denny because he's like, we're gonna get two, so why not review my stuff already? So I'm really excited to see what they're gonna do for the second part, considering where the story goes with it, not just in the music, but also just like in the designs. We've yet to see a lot of characters. We've yet to see the Emperor himself. I want to see more of Dave Bautista. I thought he was. I want to see even more of him. I thought they had some interesting elements with him because the story is PG-13, where he's supposed to be the the brutal one. But they get away with it by showing you these massacres that happen behind the fire scenes and stuff. But no, overall, I thought it was great. And I have to mention, by the way, our boy's beard, Oscar Isaac's beard.
He's looking good.
Looking great.
Yeah.
But Lady Jessica, Rebecca Ferguson herself, surprisingly one of the, I would say, kind of the lead in the movie. The movie ends kind of with a shot of her. And I think a lot of people were surprised to see the focus that was put on her. I love her as an actress. I thought she killed her performance in this. I thought she did a fantastic job at kind of seeing that viewpoint of, Lena and I were talking about this, that there's a storyline with a doctor. And the way that Denny was able to shuffle it around, she got a lot of those elements that would be in the doctor's storyline. So I'm just curious to see how he's going to play it out in part 2. But so far for me, like I said, I've seen it several times and I still can't wait to properly see it yet. So
yeah. I mean, look, that's the thing. My first experience of Dune was kind of just a very surface level, like visceral. These visuals are cool. These costumes are cool. These sounds are overwhelming. I'm just vibing with this movie. And then when I was able to watch it a second time, I kind of could dive in a little more deeply into what it's trying to say in terms of its lore, in terms of its story, in terms of the world it's building. And there actually is quite a lot there to chew on. Like, people talk about it as just, like very obviously part 1 of a movie. And yes, it is very obviously part 1. But I still think there's so much interesting stuff happening that I was like engaged with it on the story level and not let down. I also kind of feel like maybe this whole, like, are they gonna make part 2 or not is a little bit of just trying to maybe get people to think of this movie as the underdog. Like, it's the rare multi-million-dollar blockbuster that, like, people are like, oh no, we have to support it or else they won't make more.
Bro, this thing sold out. I would have flown over to you to go see it at Lincoln Chat because they had it in that proper format. That stuff was sold out day in and day out, down to the last screening, dude. People were supporting this movie.
People are really into it, and I'm glad because, like, Denny is a guy who really does build a full world, and he feels like they're really paying attention to all these different details in ways that make you feel like you're actually entering a different type of atmosphere, a different world, a different time. I'm really into it. I'm very excited that we're gonna get more. I think a lot of these big actors would not necessarily sign up for parts like this if they weren't at least somewhat sure that they would get a chance to return and do a little bit more. Dave Bautista talked recently about how he's excited to do this character as opposed to Drax, and it's like he's only in like 2 or 3 scenes so far.
But hey, he brought him back from Blade Runner too, so the fact that he's got a good working relationship with someone at the caliber of Denny, fantastic. So
yeah, absolutely.
And there's going to be a miniseries as well. They said that they were working on an HBO series called Daughters of Dune. So I'm personally one who doesn't think it's going to be a part 2. I think this thing, I'm hoping it's a trilogy, bro. I'm hoping they go part 1, 2, and 3. That'd be fantastic.
I want
the second one to be.
I saw somebody who said that it wasn't really a question of whether or not they greenlit part 2, but it's a question of whether or not they greenlit part 3. Which, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Are you going to be okay waiting? I think it's October 2023, they said that we're going to get the next part.
I will be, Zach, where I need to be at whatever location, the proper location, I will be there. It gives me enough time to plan, I'll say that. I'll be patient.
Yeah.
I could be patient.
Anything else you want to hit on Dune, or should we move on to maybe the opposite of Dune?
It's very, very similar to a certain degree. But let's talk about, what is this? Number 26? In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we of course are talking about Academy Award winner Chloe Zhao's externals. Every single time I type it, it always autocorrects to externals. I've typed Eternals into my laptop, into my phone so many times, it just will not take it. Siri don't even like this movie. Zach, you are not the big Marvel fan.
I wouldn't say that.
Well, I guess in terms of judging it as an MCU movie,
Yeah, sure.
do you think it lives up to the other ones?
Well, I think there's maybe a couple different perspectives you can take. Like, I have trouble putting myself in the shoes of an MCU fan because, like, I don't really vibe with this universe. There are some movies that I think are very good because they have like distinct visions and a clear perspective, and then there's others that are just part of the series. I find that generally speaking, these movies work best when they lean into the fact that they are entertainment, that they are roller coasters, and they are meant to be
Amusement park rides?
broad appeal. Yeah, they are amusement park rides. Maybe they're even cruise ships. I don't know if you've seen the latest with Avengers, but it's. I think when these movies try too hard to lean towards the self-seriousness, they just kind of feel hokey. They kind of feel just to whatever interesting ideas they want to implement. There are things here that are certainly interesting ideas, but almost across the board, anything that is worthwhile of exploring is not explored in enough depth to justify its inclusion here. I think obviously the biggest culprit of that is the much discussed incident with Fastos and the bombing of Hiroshima, which for some reason is part of this movie. Like it's so mind-boggling to me that nobody at Disney at some point was like, maybe we shouldn't invoke this horrible tragedy in our light, fluffy summer entertainment. I think this movie is flawed on like a fundamental level in how it's structured. I think the tone that it strikes is never quite right, and ultimately I just didn't think it justified like the trip to the movie theater. It was filler. It's just the bridge to the next installment. But what about you?
I can see what you mean about the bridge to the next installment. It's almost like a restart, really, when you look at it, because at this point they have defined so much. The whole point of the Eternals is that this is trying to get literally in the beginning. They're trying to define the beginning of this universe, not just who was here before us, but literally who made us. That's where I think it gets crazy. There's so many thematic things that she's going for in this movie, but I think the worst part about it is the editing. This has to be the worst editing job I have seen in such a long time, and the cards were stacked against it. We had individual movies for all of these superheroes before they became Avengers, to the point that when DC did the opposite, everyone belittled it. They're like, what are you doing? Those were what, 4 or 5 characters? Zach, they gave you a 2.5-hour movie for 10 characters who spent, what is it, 7,000 years. And they thought that was going to be enough. The amount of deleted scenes that they have talked about in interviews is not just frustrating because it's like, why was that cut? But it's also like this literally would have helped the movie.
Yeah,
it would have bridged some of these characters better. Kumail's out there talking about it's like, you should feel it on the screen, but really, we bonded outside of it, and there are scenes where we did all that, but we hope that you feel. No, show it to me, because we did not feel that.
But honestly, though, given the length of the movie already, like maybe this just needed to be the latest MCU series. Like if they're really trying to introduce you to 11 characters and have you care about them and have 2 different villains and like all these different motivations, and then like a whole big like meta plot going on in terms of their role within the larger MCU universe. Like it's just so much to fit into one movie.
It is.
And then ask you to care about all of it.
I think that's the worst part that they did with it, is that they it has potential to be something, but there needs to be like a bigger cut. A lot of people were upset that they were invoking, because of how religious this movie is. It has, in the beginning, there is a genesis to this. They are in Babylon. There's all these ins and outs to it. So of course people invoked who? the original Superman, the Man of Steel himself, only for her to come out and say that that was a big inspiration for her. So in the realm of talking about DC and those types of cuts, I feel like at this point what we have is another Ultimate Cut edition. We need to see what she was actually going for because there's only bits and pieces of it. There's only bits and pieces to the background of these characters. Each one clearly is supposed to define, because they're the ones who are watching over the Earth, a version of a little bit of everybody. You know, you have different, not just denominations. You have different, backgrounds for these characters. You have your first Def MCU character. You have what is supposed to be. I feel like we've already had it in the past, but officially the first romantic gay couple.
The first
on
one that
screen.
gets like an on-screen kiss and is like
The
not a
first one-
background character in the Star Wars celebration or whatever. Like,
Exactly. And because I'm pretty sure they're not opening this one in China, they ain't got no worries to cut anything. I know the other countries still banned it.
yeah,
They pretty much told
See-
those countries,
see,
we
that's
never
the thing,
changed
is
it
like-
for you. We changed it for them.
I want to give Chloe Zhao and Marvel credit that
And
like
Brian
even
Tyree
though
Henry.
it's really really tame, it's still groundbreaking in their commitment to not cutting it when it goes internet. Oh, excuse me, I'm hearing something about not cutting this movie when it goes to international distribution. It's really really bizarre that they would that they would just like put all of this investment into like selling the story in the way they did, trying to like have you view have you view this as this like groundbreaking thing, and in so many ways it's just like halfway there. You know what I mean? Like, they did so much press about, it's gonna be the first sex scene in the MCU. It's groundbreaking. We want to show what it looks like when two people care about each other, and it honestly looks like you taking a Ken and a Barbie doll and trying to make them hump. It's like the most G-rated sex scene possible. Shout out to Pink Sweets, by the way. The Eternals should have been an email. We all know that feeling. Definitely could have been an email.
Again, there's a lot that's interesting in this movie in terms of the characters and what they were trying to approach. I do feel like you said there are elements where there's the whole side of evolution. One of them is kind of like friends with Charles Darwin because they've been around for so long. But then you also have the other concept, which is like they kind of just prove there's a God. They kind of explain a lot more than is just a setting up for the next story. They set up like the entire purpose of humans on Earth. They set up like a bunch of this galactic stuff that they're going to be filling up in the future. I think I don't want to say it's worrying thing because obviously it's Marvel and they're always going to be able to fix things. And that's one of the biggest things. They know how to retcon like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like even Gamma, who is the main character in this movie, I would say she's the one who's leading the group. She was already in another Marvel movie, so you just bring them back. It's almost like they cast an actor. If they play well, they're just like, all right, now you can get the lead role.
Yeah, we upgraded you.
To a degree, yeah. But I don't know. I do want to see the director's cut, the ultimate cut, whatever you want to call it, because I do think that there is a good-ish movie in there, but I think that the way that they tried to stuff way too much, the math just doesn't equal up.
Yeah.
Again, why did we have a WandaVision show? And not to have this be the show? It doesn't make any sense to me. But I know one of the big things, Zach. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. This, Zachary, was shot on location.
Yes. Kevin Feige now knows the beauty of a natural sunset. He's never
The natural sunset.
He's never used his eyes until he's seen Chloe Zhao's filmography. Yeah. So
What side's the sunset, though?
y-
They just plastered
Yeah.
CGI all over there.
I mean,
that screen.
I think there are a few nice shots in there, and like those Marvel Stan accounts are gonna have 4 new screenshots to post their like, oh, I thought Marvel movies are supposed to be ugly tweets.
You gotta
But
stop
then
fighting
like
with them, Zach.
everything that happens in between those beautiful shots are like the most bland, boring, static medium shots. People standing in formation for no apparent reason. Like it's so.
Well, Zach, it was part of the
It's
geometry.
phony. It's phony.
The geometry. Don't you know, Zach? That's what they said. That they did the geometry to make sure that they were where they were supposed to be. It's boring. It don't really make any sense. My event here for the Imax, because I did go see it in what it was supposed to be. It's all 1.9. They'll have the whole scene in IMAX, fighting these Dementor, whatever they're called, and then right at the end, the kill shot will be wide. You got black bars on top of the box. Why wasn't the whole thing shot the way it was supposed to be? You're talking about the formations. There are plenty of scenes where one character will be in the back, that all of a sudden they'll come up to the front. I think it's very messy in terms of its editing, and I think that that's probably one of the saddest parts because I know that they were editing this movie down to the wire. I think one of the interviews she said it was down to the Saturday. She was working on Shabbat, trying to make sure that this thing was out just in time to be able to be released in theaters. So I think that I think it would be beneficial to put a lot of the deleted scenes in there. And I know it's already 2.5 hours, but we're talking about 10 characters, 7,000 years to cover.
Yeah, Devesh says, would you have wanted to see this on a TV screen, though? And I'm not so sure, because, like, at 2.5 hours, it already felt overlong to me. Like, I don't know how much more time I want to spend in that world, to be honest. I just think that a lot of times Marvel will try to gesture towards heavier, bigger ideas in hopes that it will give it the weight of having importance, but they just never really do enough to explore those ideas. And I don't think, like, there's a director's cut that's going to suddenly make Phastos's role in the evils of humanity make sense somehow,
Yes, because I'd like to think that there's something more to the characters in a cut of this movie, in a different cut of this movie. The reason why it's in theaters is mainly because of the fact that this is going to be the next building block for what the MCU is going to be.
Right.
They don't really, the characters, that's all supposed to be on Chloe. Whether we like them, however, don't matter. The whole concept of what they bring up in the after credits, of what the Celestials are supposed to be, that's their building blocks for the next thing. So whether, we remember this movie or not, it's supposed to be the gateway to where they're going to go to now. It's pretty much just expanded everything from not us having to worry about the world, because there's stuff that's bigger. It's not just about protecting the world. There are billions of galaxies out there now, so they've pretty much just put it open. And again, what's the next thing going to be? Multiverses. So this thing has expanded to a degree where they're not stopping anytime soon. So for that purpose, I see why it went to theaters. I still personally believe that for a movie that's so dependent on the characters, having a 10-episode series where you actually focus on each one and what they were supposed to represent for humanity would have been better.
Devesh points out that there is that comment from a Marvel executive recently talking about how they don't necessarily need to do a sequel to Eternals. They're not lining that up quite yet, which is different than how they normally talk about their franchises. They're often like, yeah, we're in planning, we have ideas. That was part of what I think has been the story emerging around Eternals, that there was a lot of trouble on its production, that it wasn't the smoothest sailing in terms of the process of making a Marvel film goes. There were issues around Chloe Zhao's insistence on having Final Cut on the film, and Kevin Feige actually traveled to set, which is not something that he tends to do unless there are major issues that need sorting out. So I think maybe some of those comments are a little bit related to the behind the scenes turmoil or frustrations that occurred. But we found out recently that after its opening weekend box office was really, really strong. It opened
solid,
not as high as Black Widow domestically, but bigger internationally. And ultimately, I kind of think that's what Marvel cares about more now, right? They're a global brand, and this is a very global-looking movie and a globally conscious franchise. It hops all over the world. It's not just set in America like most of these movies are. So I would have my doubts that they would suddenly abandon this franchise. I just kind of think that they'll probably go in a different direction than letting Chloe Zhao run around outside as much as she wants.
They could bring someone else back. It did say Eternals will return, so we'll see in what capacity.
Yeah. What do you think of the whole latest unfolding of the critics versus audiences that centered around Eternals, and the fact that Eternals is now the first MCU film to have a rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes?
Zach, what do I think of Rotten Tomatoes?
Not much.
It's a fugazi. It's a fugazi. It's owned by Universal and Warner Bros. I don't know. I feel like I have to mention that every single time just so people understand the perspective I'm coming from. Who cares? That doesn't mean anything. If you like it, go watch it. The narrative I think that people have been building around it is very interesting because we just came off of Shang-Chi. We just came off of Black Widow. Uh, those have positive scores. So I know that I think it was Variety, Vulture. I can't remember which one. They I guess they were down on clicks for the week, so they decided to pin critics against each other. It was really weird because usually the narrative is the critics like the stuff that's really progressive, and it's the audience that bombs it. But now the audience liked it, and now they were claiming the critics for the ones who were anti. Somehow it made the Eternal storyline seem more more concise than the narratives that people were trying to go out with when it came to all the backlash for Eternals. I don't know. I thought it was kind of goofy in terms of all that. I was more curious about the after credit scenes. I don't want to get too into what the spoilers would be, but did you stay for both?
Yeah, I stayed for both.
Did you prefer one over the other?
I can tell you that I hated the second one because it felt out of nowhere to me. It was like, to me, that in a nutshell is why I get so frustrated with these MCU movies, is their insistence on shoehorning things that don't belong in one movie just as a way of interconnecting and making you feel like you've never gotten some sort of finality, you know? Like, I hate that stuff. I know people love that stuff. I hate that stuff. The mid-credits scene was fine. I think it's funny that everybody's freaking out over one of the people. I'm freaking out over the voice that they have there, who's now doubling up in the MCU, I guess.
Tripling up, bro.
Yeah.
Tripling up. First of all, one, I'm tired of seeing him. I just saw him in Curb. I'm done. I'm sorry. You got to sit it out.
He's a little overexposed.
This actor,
sure.
He's got it. Yeah. He needs to go take a break for a little bit. But the CGI on that character was the worst I've seen.
Terrible.
That was a joke, bro.
The CGI in general, if we want to back up, really bad in this movie.
That's what I'm saying. Why are you filming in locations?
Yeah, you can make the vistas as pretty as you want. The monsters look like something out of the 2007 CGI movie. You know, like it's gross.
They look like sketches from Ultron that they didn't use, and they're like, what if we combine it with like a alien dog? And you know who did the voice?
Yeah,
the one that they keep fighting.
Shoot, tell me because it's slipping my mind.
Bill Skarsgård.
Yeah. Which again, like, why did it have a voice all of a sudden? Like,
hey, no, I'm telling you, bro, some deleted scenes. We need that ultimate cut. Hey, I stand with the deviants, man. I think they were right. I think they had something going. They were also being used, but I don't know, man. I agree with you. I just thought though that last one, because you could argue with everyone about opinion on how it looks. Maybe you thought it was pretty. Nah, after I saw that thing come out in that after credit scene, that looked like a PS2 graphic that hadn't fully rendered. It looked like the before in a VFX reel. It was disgusting. It was gross.
Yeah.
I did like who cameoed though. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, same.
And he fits it perfectly. There's one thing that she did very well in the movie is trying to have all the actors play a version of themselves. Mm-hmm. That last one was genius. Absolutely, it's perfect. I can't wait.
Yeah. Pink Sweets mentions that Druig was her that she loved Druig. I like Druig. I like Barry Keoghan. Shouts to Chloe Zhao for clearly casting off of Dunkirk. Like, I would have done that too.
She's on record. She said the reason why she cast both was because she got him from there. And he's easily the best actor, and he's easily the one who had the most emotion there. But he also said that there was a lot of his story arc that got cut.
Well, yeah, because it feels complete. It's out of nowhere, and they don't even address the fact that it's like completely immoral what he's doing. But
right, thank you. They try to make it seem like he was his king. I was like, this is the complete opposite. But it was even more than that. The relationship that he had.
I care about humans so much that I won't give them free will. That sounds like a solution. Devesh, let's end it here, said, did you like it more or less than Shang-Chi? I haven't seen Shang-Chi yet, although I believe it's going to be available on Disney Plus on Friday, so I'll probably catch up with that over the weekend. Yeah.
Oh, damn.
How about you?
No, I like Shang-Chi way more.
I mean, Shang-Chi... Again, it does sort of what I was talking about. Like, it seems like it's leaning into the fact that these are entertainment vehicles, not like ponderous, self-serious ruminations on humanity.
Yes. And that's why I think that because they wanted those elements for Eternals, that it should have been a series over this big old movie.
Yeah. All right. Let us move on to a filmmaker that I think both of us are big fans of. Not only that, we are big fans of a movie he put out earlier this year. But Last Night in Soho is the latest from Edgar Wright. His circling back towards horror or horror adjacent movies. This is pretty straightforward horror starring suspense horror. Yeah, I guess that's fair. Starring Thomasin McKenzie, Anya Taylor-Joy, Matt Smith, among others. This one stars a young girl who is into fashion, about a young girl who's into fashion design, who's mysteriously able to enter the 1960s, where she encounters another girl with whom she develops a fascination before it turns deadly, I guess we can say. You know, of course, there's a lot of really interesting visuals in this movie. It's an Edgar Wright film. He is one of our masters in terms of creating bravura visual sequences that often involve camera trickery to just help them feel like they're authentic, right? A lot of people have pointed out the whole beginning dance sequence, like her first trip into the 1960s, where they do a lot of switching between Thomasin McKenzie and Anya Taylor-Joy, a lot of like practical in-camera effects that are really cool and really well executed. There was a minute, like maybe half an hour into this film, where I was like, okay, did Edgar Wright just do this so he could do every mirror trick in his book? Like he just wanted to whip them all out. As the film progressed, I found myself less and less into it, a little less taken with just the visual style of it, and a little more focused on the lack of substance at its center. It sort of felt to me like a film without a reason for existing. Like there's not kind of like a center to this story that hasn't been done other ways much more appropriately and much more complexly. And ultimately, for a movie that's about the suspense, I thought the final twists, one was completely obvious to me, and the second involved the movie lying to you, which I always hate. So it ended really unsatisfyingly. I don't want to say it was bad because it's obviously very well crafted, but I walked out of the theater feeling disappointed. But what about you? What did you think about Last Night in Soho?
I thought it looked ugly, bro. I know what you're saying, and I'm not saying that he didn't do all the tricks of the book.
I hear that.
There are visual effects he uses in this movie that were hideous. I did not get it. There were some elements, some like CGI that he tried doing for some of the bigger action scenes, did not work for me. However, the sound design in this, I got to catch it in the last Dolby showing that they had. Beautiful, bro.
Yeah.
Just the way that he's able to montage, like, you know, there will be a scene where, you know, she's transported back in the 60s and you're hearing like a and then she comes back and it's the fan. And I love the little things that he does with that. And I think that that's where it really excelled. Visually, I'm sorry, it wasn't terrible. There are a lot of really great shots, but there's also like poop shots, bro. There's just some garbage shots in this movie. The story, I agree with you. It's a very interesting story at the beginning, and you're wondering where it's going to go. You're looking at these characters. You're wondering who's really on her side, who could be the misunderstood one. But, you know, how much of it is also in her head. And you really start thinking of the logistics of what's going on here as she's, you know, swapping between these two worlds, where I still feel it's a completely different vibe to the movie if you start confirming certain things about what is happening in her off time when they're, I guess, swapping between the timelines.
Right.
I do agree with you that the ending is dumbfounding. The ending not only doesn't really make a point, but it's not really a twist because our main character would have known.
Yeah.
And even in the twist that you see when you rewatch it, you would realize, well, now that I know this, then every time that I'm seeing something, I would know the background to said thing, and they would react differently.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I felt that the message of it didn't really, you know, it's a pretty basic message. It's kind of like Eternal saying, like, should humans be given a chance to live? This one's like, you know,
women can be scared of men.
Yeah. So there's also an element that I know people were complaining about in the third act, and I'm very curious to see, like, if it's a varying thing, but I feel that it has something to do with this VFX thing that I'm telling you about. A certain element that involves VFX in which the VFX starts switching the position of certain characters, and I found that to be the most out of nowhere thing, and then swaps it right there. I was like, just kidding. Just kidding. It's kind of like a movie telling you to sympathize with the villain, and then at the last second just going like, "Oh, just kidding. We're just gonna do that for 30 seconds to see how y'all vibe with it. All right, moving on to the next thing." I don't know. I think it still has all the visual flares and everything that Edgar Wright is known for. It's got his rhythmic style of directing, but I don't think the message was that strong. And I was really hoping for I guess, a better finale because I felt it contradicted itself.
Yeah, I agree, definitely. Speaking of that finale, I'm going to allude to something without spoiling it, but there is a moment where she's in her bedroom and they do this really cool, I'm going to assume a practical effect, like the kind of thing that, makes you that really stands out in a movie like this. And it makes zero sense given the plot in that moment. Like it involves these things trying to stop her from doing the thing that they want her to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's clearly just there because Edgar Wright was like, this would look dope. And it does look dope, but it makes no sense. And that ultimately is kind of the problem with this movie. And it's why I'm so conflicted on it. I gave it 3 stars walking out of it, and I'm just like looking at that on my Letterboxd account, and I don't know. I don't think it's a 3-star movie. There's something.
I do.
There's something soulless though.
I don't think it's soulless. I think it's misguided. I think he thinks he's doing a lot. I think he thinks it's a little bit more profound than it is.
Yeah.
And I know he got the screenwriter also did 1917, and I remember that was a really big thing because these were like the first scripts came in to do. But to me, it feels a lot like another movie we're going to be talking about in a little bit, where I feel he's talking about certain subject matter, and so he got a female screenwriter.
Right.
And there is another movie in where it's broken into part. And maybe we can't write this. They gave it to another female screenwriter to write that element. And I think that it makes it more disjointed than you think it does. We'll talk about that other movie in a little bit, but I think that Last Night in Soho is worth the 3 stars. I don't think it is a terrible movie. I just don't think it's as profound as it needs to be, or that it thinks it is. But I do think a lot of people were like overly hating on it. But I think that just happens because you're Edgar Wright. Like you've elevated your movies to a level that people want to see something crazy, not just visually. Like they want to be invested in your characters and in your worlds. But you had mentioned Spark Brothers that came out earlier, a much better movie that came from him as a documentary, and that's on Netflix. So you don't even need to leave the house to catch the best Edgar Wright movie of the year.
Yeah. Actually just thinking about it, this might be my least favorite Edgar Wright movie now, which I guess is sad. But I don't know. I'm a little bit concerned about him as a writer, because the Cornetto trilogy is obviously great. He has the benefit of co-writing those with Simon Pegg. I loved Scott Pilgrim versus the World, but that is heavily influenced by the comics that it comes from. And I found both this and Baby Driver to be just a little bit lacking at the center. Like, obviously, they're both very slick productions, and I know a lot of people really like Baby Driver, but that's another movie that kind of just felt empty at the center for me. So
he just felt bad. He had Spacey, so he's like, I need to make a movie to counteract these bad guys.
Yeah. All right, let's maybe hit Lamb really quick, because I don't think we've done that on the podcast yet. I did end up catching it. A24 did another one of their at-home things.
They did.
Which was kind of cool. They had like some footage of a lamb farm in upstate New York or something like that. I don't know why they even bother doing those things, but yeah, I guess it adds a little to the experience. This one is the latest A24 trailer bait and switch for a sort of horror or horror adjacent movie. It's kind of a folktale about Icelandic couple that discover a mysterious half lamb, half human child. I guess it is sort of like maybe like a 15-30 minute spoiler of the movie, but it's in the trailers and it's in the plot description side.
It is, yeah.
I don't really want to mess around like half like hem and haw around it.
If I may, I saw this in theaters.
Yeah.
And half of my theater did not know that.
So I guess it is like a good surprise.
I've never seen people get up and leave to the front. I had never seen that in my life. Usually they get up, they dip in an A24 movie like this. They got closer to the screen. I had a blast in my theater, man. But let's talk about this one.
So maybe that is part of what I'm missing, that I didn't have the communal experience of seeing people react in shock and surprise and awe and humor. Because it's sort of like a very low key farm movie about their daily lives and just dealing with this bizarre situation and coming to terms with it, but also not really. It kind of just is. My review on Letterboxd was that like sometimes a movie asks a question and then the answer to that question is I don't know, man. And that sort of was my experience with Lamb. Like it kind of just it was until it wasn't anymore. I didn't really jive with it, but sounds like you had a better time.
I thought it was alright. I thought it was pretty decent. It's the better Eternals. See, Zach, there is a lot of biblical references in this. Obviously, not just lamb. You have a duo of parents who come with child. You know, you have there's a lot of really when you look at it, the kid's name ends up being kind of like a play on Adam and Eve. I can't remember what they call her, or Ada. You also have there's several moments that play off of a lot of Old Testament things like taking your sacrificial lamb out to the slaughter because that's what you're supposed to do, only for it to maybe magically be saved. A lot of different biblical things that happen throughout that I was like, all right. I'm not saying that they say anything, but you could tell that they're alluding to them. And then the movie just, I agree with you. It just kind of ends. It doesn't really give you an answer. It is one of those where it just goes, isn't it kind of cool to like see this? And then doesn't really expand on it in any other way. I do like Noomi Rapace. I think she's a fantastic actress. I thought she does a great job in the movie.
She's good. The performances are good. I don't think it was like a particularly great looking film. Like it's kind of a very crudely CGI'd lamb head onto a human body. At no point am I like
I liked it.
At no point was I like, how did they do this? It seemed very obvious how they did it the whole time.
I didn't think it was that bad. Would I recommend it to people? No, I cannot recommend it to people. But I do think that if you wanted to just see a super weird movie, maybe this ends up on Hulu, or I don't know who's got to deal with A24 right now. And I don't know, you're blasted out drunk. Give this a watch. I'm pretty sure it'll catch you off guard. Maybe you'll snooze, but I did kind of like the tone that they were going for it.
Was it Christmas in the movie? Did I miss that?
Yeah, I think it's taking place during the winter, so I actually do want to rewatch it. I want to do a little bit of an LME on this one, but that'll be for the future. But yeah, can't recommend this one. I know a lot of people, if they would have gone to the theater, risking it all in the pandemic for Lamb, probably not the thing to go, especially when 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later it was out on VOD. So, but Devesh did ask. He said between Pig and Lamb, who beats who? I personally, I don't know if you've caught Pig yet, Zach, but Pig will be coming out to Hulu.
I'll catch up with it then.
That's the one right there, Zach.
But I think you have Cow above both of them. We'll maybe get into that a little bit later.
I have Gunda.
All right. Let's get into another one that I actually haven't had a chance to watch yet, but it's available on Netflix now. It is The Harder They Fall, the new revisionist spaghetti western, I guess you want to call it, with a pretty awesome cast. Jonathan Majors, Idris Elba, Regina King, Zazie Beetz, Delroy Lindo, Lakeith Stanfield. Goes on and on and on, really. Art, tell me a little about this one.
This is supposed to be a bunch of characters, a bunch of actual historical people. As the movie tells you early on, these people were real. The story is not. It is this big kind of sprawling Western, which I'm a big fan of, that is just with these rich, beautiful colors. There's a bunch of spaghetti shootouts that are going on. It's 2 hours and something long. Because Jay-Z is the producer on this, they have a stacked soundtrack for this. There are some songs where the beat goes with the shooting. So it's like, pshung, 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 pshung. It's a little goofy sometimes, but I don't know, when you're watching the movie, you're kind of feeling it. The movie does a lot, Zach. It is very over the top.
Yeah.
It is a big adventure film. It's not a perfect movie in any way, shape, or form. There are moments where they go to a town, right? And it's supposed to be a white town. They go way overboard. It's not just a white town. They sucked all the color out of that town. All the signs are just like, it's like in sepia or something. I had a great time with it, though. I absolutely had a blast. This is a movie that I ended up catching at home. I had a screening that I missed because I was hoping to go to Memorial. I wish I went to that screening.
Yeah.
I wanted to see this in a super loud theater. It's also just a lot of beautiful vista scenes. Obviously, it's a Western. That would have been great to see in a big theater. I'm not saying that it's perfect, but when you're following these two gangs, pretty much what it's come up with is that you have the Nat Love gang, and this is a dude who's trying to get revenge because of what you see at the beginning. Someone came, hurt his family. He's got his gang that he's trying to set up to go up against Idris Elba's gang. Idris Elba's gang is busy trying to free Idris Elba, and it's how these two come clashing with each other. And I love the different dynamics that the characters have. Nat's group has somebody, I believe it's our boy who played Earl. He thinks he's the fastest slinger in the West. But then the other side's got Lakeith. Now he's the fastest slinger in the West. So you just have these little dynamics between the characters that I really loved seeing, that they're hyping up for when you get there. I think her name was Cassie. She was one of my favorite characters in there as well, kind of just like the loyal partner who's there with the gang. Again, it's one of those where if you're a fan of Westerns in any way, shape, or form, I think you'll kind of dig what they're doing with it. It is meant to be over the top, meant to be like in your face, but I don't know. I had a blast with it, and that's the point.
Yeah,
so
no, it definitely,
I would recommend it.
It definitely seems like a movie that is like leaning into that like entertainment aspect, right? It's not necessarily trying to be some perfect historical recreation where everything is exactly how it was. It's giving you movie stars and guns in a cool location, and if it satisfies on that level, like, it sounds like a good time to me.
No, so I would definitely say that. I know Pink Sweets had just asked if the JC song is a contender. I would want to say, personally, no, I don't think it's like the top song of the year in terms of what would be an Oscar nomination, but it does have the backing to it, and I feel like that Netflix will run a pretty good course with it because, again, it did play for 2 weeks in theaters. I don't think it played at AMC's because they're still doing that thing against Netflix, but it was able to get some theaters around the area, and I think that they'll be able to have a good push with it. Cudi's also in one of the main songs, so I am not against seeing Kid Cudi. What a great documentary. I didn't even have this on our list.
Yeah.
Watch the Kid Cudi doc on Amazon Prime. Holy smokes. Fantastic. But I think he may have the push to be able to get a nomination. I don't think it's the best, but the whole soundtrack's out. I had a good time listening to the soundtrack. I don't think it probably would get a push for anything else, but I just love seeing the characters in this. I love how into it the actors get in, the close-ups, because they do these goofy close-ups too. It's just the cliche things that you see in Westerns where it's like the camera will zoom in and they'll do stuff like that. I know that some people were saying that it was like a Tarantino ripoff, and I just it hurts to hear people not realize who Tarantino gets it from. Yeah, it's just really goofy in that sense. But I really like the director. Like he was just so passionate for this movie, and I think it shows. I thought it was super entertaining. And Ricky, yeah, the Bulls are hot this season. Maybe not the Bears so far. Go watch them. Because I'm fully aware that they're on right now too.
Yeah. It helps to have the DVR in those locations. Connor,
right?
Connor's really hyped to check out Harder They Fall. I am too.
Yeah, dude. Majors. It's Majors, bro. Majors does not give a bad performance.
Yeah. Devesh asked, what was the last truly great Western? He says he liked Scarfield's Magnificent Seven, but surely there's a better one. I mean, the thing that's coming to mind to me, which is maybe not the most like traditional gunslingy Western, is the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
Bro. Thank you.
Andrew Dominic,
yeah,
2007. We should do a podcast
We're the
together.
Best. We should do a podcast.
That one's really great. Very contemplative and very brooding, but yeah, I mean, I think it applies. It has got a lot of the great Western traditions and just is gorgeous. Like one of the most beautiful looking movies I've ever seen.
Easily. I would toss in the remake to 310 to Yuma. I thought was done pretty well.
I also was thinking of that one.
That had Christian Bale in it. Yeah, there's the other one too. Bone Tomahawk was pretty grisly one.
I never saw that one. People really like that. Yeah,
it's pretty decent. Yeah, and then I know some people consider Logan a Western, so I guess there's that if you want to call it. There's probably several other ones. So, but yeah, I'd say 310 to Yuma was probably my last one that I absolutely fell in love with in the theaters. As a big Western fan, so.
Oh,
just any other?
We didn't mention Hateful Eight. I guess Hateful Eight. should be thrown in there, even though it's like I think the
No,
the
Django.
coldness
What are
of
you
it
talking
makes it feel.
Django.
It's sort
Django.
of. Oh, Django. Yeah, Django works too.
Not Hateful Eight. I put Django over Hateful
Connor
Eight.
throws in Buster Scruggs. Yeah, Buster Scruggs is great. I love
Let's
Buster
stress
Scruggs.
counts. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like how we've widened, like even the ones like Slow West, and then there was even that one
Oh,
something
Slow
Darling.
West.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's a great Western, but I love Ben Mendelsohn's coat. I want that
exactly.
coat.
So a bunch of ones.
Bruce Wayne mentioned Old Henry. I haven't gotten around to that one, but a lot of people really liked, what's that dude's name? Tim Blake Nelson, who has the lead performance in that one.
Buster.
Sorry? Oh, yeah,
Buster?
Buster Scruggs himself. Magnitude asks, does the American Frontier trilogy count? Hell or High Water, Sicario, Wind River, those, what's that, our boy, what's his name? Sheridan? Taylor Sheridan?
Taylor Sheridan.
Yeah.
Hell or High Water for sure. I'd count Hell or High Water.
Yeah, I'd count Hell or High Water. We actually just got the screeners to his new show coming up on Paramount Plus. We'll have to talk about that soon on Intercut.
The mayor one is his?
Yeah, that's him, dude. Mayor of Kingstown.
I've heard good things
Jeremy
about
Renner,
Yellowstone
Kyle
too.
Chandler.
So I gotta hop on that one. I've heard that's a dope show that he went all out in. So we'll see.
Yeah,
But I've been iffy on his recent movies, so we'll see how the scripts to the shows are.
For sure. I will touch on Spencer really briefly because I
Catching
don't.
it tomorrow. Hype me up, please,
Okay.
Zach. What'd you give it? I
I'm
want to see a 4.
I'm only at the 3.5, but I could be persuaded. I could change my mind on this one because it is really, really interesting, really, really beautifully done. Pablo Larraín giving us another biopic of a woman in the spotlight, and another movie that's just gorgeous to look at. You know, from the cinematography to the production design behind the costuming, and also these locations that are just so picture perfect in terms of recreating the feel of for Jackie Kennedy, like the presidency, and then for here giving you that royalty, that grandeur, that upstairs downstairs that is so fun about shows and movies that give you that dynamic. Of course, the big sell here is that this is Kristen Stewart, and Kristen Stewart in a role that many people are hyping up to potentially be her first Oscar nomination, and I am going to join in with the chorus and say that like this is very likely going to be an Oscar nomination for her, and a deserved one, because she is very, very good in this movie. She's an actress that I really love. I've always been on Team Kristen, despite all the Twilight haters out there, and I think that she's an actress who often is able to put a bit of herself into the roles in ways that I like, right? Like Denzel is another guy who just like, it's Denzel, but he's able to find aspects to it. And Kristen's like that too, in that like her persona sometimes influences her characters. Here, I really felt her kind of disappear into the role, even though there are maybe some parallels to her life. This is like her playing a whole different person. This is her playing like an adult woman. I don't know if I've ever saw her as like an adult before, since she's kind of close to me in age. But yeah, she's really dynamic, really interesting, just like very tortured, and you feel that constant contemplation in her head, that like unease and that nerviness that she's able to portray so well. I think it's an excellent performance. There's lots of things about this movie that should be in contention for Oscar nominations. Shouts out to the Johnny Greenwood score. I'm always down for a good Johnny Greenwood score. I don't think that ultimately the movie that surrounds these elements is that great. Like, there's interesting parts to it, but the script is so message forward. It's so stating subtext as text. It's not enough for them to say the theme once. They're going to bring a ghost around to say the theme a second time. Like, it's just a little bit too obvious in what it's trying to tell, that it just kind of is a bit of a bummer. Like, it's putting too fine of a note on it and not giving you the feeling, not letting you just experience it. So I'd like something that maybe had a softer touch than Larraín does, but it didn't keep me from appreciating so many aspects of Spencer.
Two for you. One, do you think she's got a better chance over Tammy Faye?
Better chance.
Or not better chance, but who do you prefer between the two performances, her and Chastain's?
I mean, that's tough. Like the Chastain performance is really good, but it's also like a style of acting that I respond to a little bit less because it's very loud, it's very broad, and this is a very internal performance. Although not it's not. I don't want to call it a quiet performance, but I think maybe stylistically, I jive a little bit more with what Stewart's doing than what Chastain was doing. You first started by saying who has the better chance, and like that's tough too because Chastain has been a darling for a while, but I think people really want Kristen Stewart to win an Oscar.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
So, second one, you kind of touched on it a little bit. I keep hearing this is a horror film.
Yes. So I think this has kind of got that like the Nest quality of the house as a haunted house, but for your interactions and your memories kind of vibe to it. Like it feel if it turned into a straight out horror movie at some point, it wouldn't feel too out of place because she's just surrounded by this discomfort and all these elements that are kind of working against her. Like maybe Mother is kind of the better comparison to make, although obviously like, Mother is an assaultive movie and I wouldn't ever qualify this as like something that's very assaultive. But both of those movies get to this idea of like having things invade your space and not being able to kind of like be at home, right? So I liked a lot about it, but it was just maybe a little bit too obvious in certain parts for me. I do want to give it a second chance though and see maybe if I pick up on some different things. If it bothers me less on a rewatch that they're stating their moral out loud. It's very good though. Not just Kristen Stewart. There's a bunch of very good performances in this. Timothy Spall, or what is that his name? Yeah, Timothy Spall shows up and is really great. Sean Harris, I think, has a really great small role in this that I liked. Sally Hawkins is just so warm in a movie that lacks warmth so much. So I'm very curious to see your thoughts. I think you're going to dig this one.
Excited. I got that right after Clifford, Zach, so stacked day at the cinema.
For sure. All right, so I do want to get to some of the movies that you saw at the Chicago International Film Festival, which you got to see a whole bunch of stuff. So where do you want to start out here? Do you want to start with the top of your list, or you want to go bottom up?
Let's go bottom up. I'll do a quick little run through them. Mayor Pete, probably the only one that I thought was not very good, and that mainly comes down to the fact that this is the new documentary from a duo who we really loved.
Yeah.
They had previously done Boy State, and here they came in to do this Pete Buttigieg. They couldn't even say it they have a whole thing about that in the movie. I don't know. I feel that this is not just a by the numbers biopic that feels more like a campaign movie for the man. Even if there's no campaign, it's kind of still helping him in terms of like, look at the sympathy I can get. But it's one where he gets into a discussion with a dude who pretty much says, you're using your identity when you need it. To which he says, he's like, no, I don't believe I should be judged because I'm white. And then the guy calls him out and he goes, he's like, but when your identity, which is being gay, helps you, then you do use that. And the movie just cuts to the next scene. They don't even let him argue it. That's all I got to say. Mayor Pete, I believe, is going to come out on Prime. If you're curious, check that out. But go to Apple instead and watch Boy State. Yeah. Because that's a much better version of this movie.
Yeah, it was kind of I was just sort of...
Did you catch it?
No, I didn't catch it. But I was just sort of like a little upset when I saw that our Jesse Moss was making this his next project. I don't know. Had a bad feeling.
I don't know. It was rough. The other one would be Antlers. This was a movie that I was able to get an early screening there within the fest as well. It played at the fest. It is the new one by the dude who did Out of the Furnace and Black Mass, Scott Cooper. He had never done a horror movie before, and then Theo Guillermo came in and he said, I like your movies. make a horror film, and he did. This is a beautifully shot film. I was talking about the cameras earlier that they're creating to really make them super big. He shot this one on a Sony Venice, and there are some just striking shots in this. There is a beautiful shot of the monster when it comes out. I know that they did some puppeteering with it. I think it delivers when it comes to the monster. There is this beautiful shot in the woods when the police car is driving away. It looked absolutely gorgeous. This movie, I know for many people, they've been waiting on this since before the pandemic. I was ready to see this at an arc light. Arc lights don't exist next to me anymore, Zach. I wanted to see that there. If you're going to cast this one, make sure you see it on a beautiful screen, one that isn't going to be washed out, that has a really good contrast to it. That said, it is a very slow movie, and I'm fine with it being slow. This is one where the monster is a metaphor. Obviously, it represents a lot more, and it gets into a lot of indigenous culture. Yet they don't have that many indigenous people in it. They have one guy who comes in to say something. Shout out Graham. He does his thing, and then he kind of just dips out. And it's really Kerry Russell kind of looking at it from her perspective, and like the problems that have happened in this town. But it says so much for you. There's literally a news station that goes, and this is all the problems that are happening with drugs and other news, white supremacy, and then it just like cuts to the next day. It's literally telling you what the meaning of the movie is, and I don't know. I found that to be a little overbearing, but nonetheless, I think he's a really good director, and I think that his approach to this was supposed to be one of a man who doesn't know the genre, but a man who doesn't know the genre doesn't know the tropes that he's also falling to, and not realizing that a lot of monsters actually metaphor type movies have already been out there and they've done a little bit better. But it does look beautiful. And Jesse Plemons, there is one line that Jesse Plemons just knows how to do his thing, man. He says something because he's siblings with Kerry Russell, and he just says something, and the look in his eyes, man, you feel it. You know that there's some history there. So he always kills every performance that he's in. But if you're interested in this one, again, just catch it in a really good theater. Just know it's a little bit slower. Cow would be the other one that I got the chance to catch. It is Andrea Arnold's Gunda, is how I'd put it. If you've seen Gunda, which we highly recommend, it is on Hulu. A very slow, yes, pretentious movie, but one that just has a killer ending, even though it doesn't show you any music. It's all shot in black and white. This one is in color. Zach, this one has a soundtrack. There are certain points where you think it's just Billie Eilish playing in the background, which is one still very distracting because you're following this farm and this cow and what they do with this entire cattle. And it's disgusting, again, just like the pig and Gunda. But then the music is actually like superimposed, and I don't know. It went into some weird elements. I don't think it's as strong and as emotional as Gunda and the outlook that had. But nonetheless, not a bad documentary that kind of shows you the entire process of what they do to a cow when it's at this farm and how brutal it gets. So if you're interested in this one, Cow, I'm not sure who picked it up, but it could be on Neon soon. You could do a double one with Gunda.
Shouts to HBG. Release the Andrea Arnold cut. I feel like we're talking Big Little Lies here, but just release every Andrea Arnold cut.
The next one was actually the Gold Hugo winner for the doc competition. It was called Skal. This is about a 21-year-old poet who is in Christianity. Her whole family's in Christianity, and she's trying to like handle living this double life. Mainly because anything that she does with her boyfriend is considered bad. Any way that she tries to express herself is considered bad. It is not the right way that she's supposed to be. And they do this really cool thing, not only because it's the vistas that they show you look fantastic, but it's her and her boyfriend who are always writing like their poetry, their whatever it is, the lyrics in this car. I really enjoyed this movie, and I would say it would go very well, this being a documentary, would go very well with a narrative feature that played at TIFF called Disco. That one is a very similar story, but she's a dancer there, kind of struggling to use her art or the thing that she's really good at within a group of people who she doesn't want to leave. I think that's the beauty of the movie. She doesn't want to leave the faith that she's in, the family who's there with her. It's just that they won't accept her for who she is. And the movie, being a documentary, builds up to the poem that is called Skal. And Zach, that poem was incredible. Killed it. So shout out to that movie. It picked up the award. I would say rightfully so. One of the better docs that I caught there. Another one that played was Beta Test.
The boy.
They were telling us the other day that this was digital at what do we say? All the other festivals. It was not digital at any of the festivals.
Tribeca, yeah.
This has not been digital.
Now it's digital.
Zach got the boy a link though.
They gave up on that not digital thing a little bit.
Oh yeah, they give them quick. Look, I respect the hell out of Jim Cummings, the way that he's gone his whole indie route, everything that he's done. To me, he does a really good job at like playing the main guy who's building up to this one moment, this sequence where he's gonna give you his all. He's just gonna lash out, give this whole speech, and I think he killed that in Thunder Road. I don't know if he'll ever surpass that. I don't remember there being a big one in the Wolf Hollow one. He's got one here, and you just like feel it approaching. Overall, this movie is about this Hollywood agent who gets like this letter to like do this like sex offer at a hotel, and I like the intrigue that he's got going on there. It's also very much commenting on a lot of the stuff that's happened in Hollywood, sometimes really in your face, sometimes pretty funny in a very slick way, because I believe the person who also co-stars with him, co-wrote it with him, I think maybe even co-directed. I don't know if you could check that.
Yeah, I think he does have the co-director on there if we're going to crew.
Yeah.
PJ McCabe.
Honestly, this feels more independent than his other films. I don't even know how that's possible. It feels like someone who wanted the vibes of like a Wolf of Wall Street and then just did it in the most shoestring budget that they could, and I really respect the hell out of that. There are moments though where I wish if it was like, I don't know, shot just a little bit better, color graded just a bit better, if the sound sounded a little bit more crisp, these moments can be so much more. And I'm nothing against the guy acting, because again, I think he killed it in Thunder Road, but there's this like diminishing returns thing where I just know he's about to do that big sequence where he's going to give his speech, and I would love to see him direct a lead instead. So very much enjoyed a lot of people have been liking it.
No, I mean it's a good point you make, and maybe Jim Cummings is at the point where he has to show us a different like weapon in his arsenal if he wants to be the star of these movies. Yeah,
that too. But I would be very curious to see him, because I like the approach to the story. I like all the visuals that they go for in telling it. But yeah, I think it would be really cool to see the man direct somebody else.
Totally.
Nobody has to know, speaking of acting, won both of the awards, the male and female performance. Booley Lanners is actually not just the star, but also the director and the writer. He was talking about making a movie and where he really wanted to get, at this point in his life, at this age, a movie that's really getting into the subject matter that he feels to be most important. And here he plays a dude who ends up having a stroke, loses his memory, and his caretaker, who's played by Michelle Fairley, who many of you may know from Game of Thrones, Miss Stark herself. She takes care of him, and once his memory goes away, because she's been so lonely, goes, hey, you and I, we were kind of a thing. And then this whole like story between them sprawls, because he doesn't know any better, and she's trying to take advantage of it to a degree. And I thought it was a pretty interesting little story, not just about them, but kind of like their surroundings. I know that played a really big factor in it, in terms of how she has not just her family, but like the church, the way that the village lives, and why he's always been the outcast who was living by himself. But I do think the performances were pretty solid. Not my favorites of the fest, but nonetheless, shout out to them for getting that. And I thought it was a decent little drama.
Cool.
Any Given Day is the winner from the Chicago Award doc. It talks about the mental health crisis that we have here in Chicago, and honestly, it could be applied to anything. And I had heard that people came out of this documentary crying, like just sobbing, just something that they had never seen before. I have family members who are bipolar, so I know what an episode is like. I know when someone's in a manic state. This movie, I think, is crucial for many people who have never seen that. I think, you and I, we see dozens of movies where they have this element in there, where it's the multiple personalities, or what would that is a twist in the movie. Yeah. That is the negative connotation. Oh, they're evil. They're this.
Explains the villain's villainy or whatever.
Exactly. And this is a movie where it shows you that no, these are people, and because you build a relationship with them, the director ends up capturing them in these states where, again, as every documentary can be assessed, do you capture it? Do you see them get to the point that they're at? Do you realize that it's beneficial for people to see these people at that state? Not to just see them when they're writing their book, when they're trying to get custody of their daughter, but to see them when they're at that point where they're keeping them from being able to accomplish these things because of the way that they get. and I think a lot of people need to see stuff like that. And I think that this really it doesn't belittle them, it doesn't judge them. It kind of just shows you the resources that they may or may not have to help them out. And I think for that, I think it deserved the award.
Nice.
Petite Maman. I want you to talk about this
Celine.
one with me because how is this only an hour 12, bro?
Right? Like,
Like I was upset it was too short, but then it's like, is that a good thing that I want more of
it's
it?
perfect. It's like
What a beautiful fall movie.
just the right amount of movie for this story too, because it is kind of a small story. It's not a thing where there's a whole lot of action or a whole lot of characters. Even I think there's like 4 or 5 characters in this whole thing, and it's just telling this very sweet story involving these kids and this relationship they develop that has some interesting extenuating circumstances around it, if that's how you want to put it. But
Either way.
that's the thing is, like, I think the movie begins as this one small thing, this one really breezy idea, and then it actually ends in a very beautiful, moving place. And I loved that in such a seemingly delicate, tiny package, Celine Sciamma is really able to just tug at your heartstrings in this way. And I thought this was such a touching movie. I was so impressed by it.
I agree. And the production design was also fantastic in this. It reminded me a lot of how the father was able to switch out things within the loft. The same thing kind of happens here with the way that they tell the story and when you're entering these rooms and they kind of have like a different look to it that I really appreciate. I thought it was a beautiful looking movie. And again, I was just surprised how short it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, fantastic little entry. The next one that I caught was the Sony Classics documentary about Julia Childs called Julia. I'm sure that this one's going to get a really big push because Sony Classic Pictures always does a really good run with it. And it's got the directors who did the Paul E. Murray doc that we saw at Sundance and the RBG doc. I think it was just called RBG.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I first heard about Julia, I assumed that it was going to get that like standard Oscar push because they always end up putting like a biopic or two in the documentary, and maybe not always, but sometimes they do. But I know Amazon is actually campaigning Paul Murray for Best Documentary, so maybe they have the potential to have 2 movies in the run.
Right, that'd be dope. But yeah, that's technically 2 movies that they will be releasing this year. Paul Murray, like Zach said, is on Prime. This one is definitely going to get that theatrical, and then you got to wait for it to get the VOD. But I think it's worth it. It's just looking back at her entire life, not just as her own personal view on food, which I just love. That's the reason why she became so big, was her perspective of adding flavor to your life, having all these books that she did in terms of being able to use your everyday items that you had to be able to make a meal that wasn't your, what was the craze back then, which was just TV dinners galore. Then there's the business side of it that was so intriguing to see how she approached the way that she did the show, how she chose her guests, the way that she chose specific items that would peel everything off because she wasn't doing a brand deal with anybody. I don't know. There was just a lot to enjoy in the doc in terms of how she got to where she was, but also the fact that like she herself is the selling point.
Right.
We were talking about that Bob Ross doc and how he got screwed over because of what he was trying to build. Not realizing that it's him who was the selling point. Not his paintbrushes, it was him.
Yeah.
For Julia, it was the exact same thing. It was her. It's very rare when you see somebody look at their SNL sketch of themselves and laugh. And that's the type of person, that they display her to be. And no, I thought it was a really good doc. I would highly recommend it.
Awesome.
You hated this one. The French Dispatch is the new one from, I actually had a whole Timmy day. I went to go see, it was one of the days that I was watching Timmy and Imax for Dune, and then I went and I saw him in the French Dispatch as well. I had no idea that the new Wes Anderson was like if you can call it an anthology. It's very segmented because it's supposed to be part of this, the final issue of the French Dispatch?
Yeah, it definitely has an anthological structure, although I don't know if you can call it an out-and-out anthology given the way that it is connected.
But I wasn't prepped for that, bro.
Yeah. Especially
because, and maybe it'll change when I see it again, it's so abrupt. You have one of the ones, especially the one that's cutting between Lea Seydoux character with the painting.
Benicio del Toro, yeah.
And Benicio del Toro. And then it cuts to Tilda Swinton. I liked both of them. because this is all part of one. Tilda Swinton is kind of telling you the backstory of this artist, and then you're seeing the backstory of the artist.
Yeah.
But it'll pause between the two, and I liked both. I did not like stopping one to go talk to the other.
It's a little
And then
bit
stopping
like
that.
those moments in Grand Budapest Hotel, because Budapest is another one where it's a story within a story within a story, and this like Russian nesting doll thing that he does. It's really cool. Like I am impressed that he pulls it off, but I do feel like it gives the story like this sort of jerky momentum where you're like, all right, we're going. Okay, hold on. All right, we're going again. Okay, hold on a second. And yeah, for me, that's one of the things that helped, that prevented me from really falling in the rhythm of French Dispatch.
That's the only problem I had with the movie.
Otherwise, you really liked it?
No, people saying that there's no heart in this. I definitely think. Sometimes I think there was too much heart, bro. I think he had, what's his name in the Benicio del Toro one, who's trying to buy the paintings, who just popped up in Succession.
Oh, Adrian Brody.
Adrian Brody was talking some smack in there. I want to see Adrian Brody and other stuff. He was over there defending artists because you know what? Maybe they're really good artists. So maybe we should keep these artists. Who cares if they've done something if they made really great art? I feel that there is a lot of moments. There's a Jeffrey Wright part where
Jeffrey Wright's really good in this.
He's very good in this movie, and I don't want to spoil some of the elements that he brings into it. But there's one part where Jeffrey is talking about why he does what he does, and to me, it felt a lot of like Wes Anderson, and even the Benicio part as well, where he's like, don't ask me to describe what I do, and if I do it this way, it's because that's the way I want it to be done, and that's how it should be. But there's also elements where I know one of the biggest critiques that Wes has gotten is the fact that there's not enough minority characters, and there's a point in this movie where someone says, yes, there is a story, but I don't think it should be pushed. And it's almost like Wes Anderson said, nah, do it. If you know what I'm talking about. So I definitely think he wears his heart on his sleeve in this movie. I think he puts that within all of his characters. And again, I don't get bored with his visuals, man. I really don't. I know some people did not like the cutting to the animation. I absolutely loved when they cut to the animation scenes. I thought they were hilarious. I thought they were funny. I'm not saying that it's his best out of his filmography, because he's got obviously a very great filmography, but I enjoyed it. It was only, like you described it perfectly, the stop and go motion that the first one had that kind of had me like, wait, what are we doing here?
Yeah, and like,
enjoyed it.
I really don't want to say that I disliked it. I didn't. I gave it 3 stars. It's just that I did find myself a little maybe exhausted, maybe overwhelmed is like the right word. Like there is so much he's doing that it's a little like I kind of almost wanted a breather at some points. I could see myself warming to this movie after some time to let it marinate. It's just that like on initial viewing, it was just so it just sort of felt like so fussy that I didn't really respond to it the way that I wanted to, because Wes Anderson really is one of my favorite filmmakers, like easily one of my favorite filmmakers ever. Deveshmans asks, isn't its abruptivity part of the point? I mean, perhaps, yeah, that is sort of the structure of it, and it is these articles, but even like an article in a magazine, you have to have like a concluding paragraph, right? Like you have to end it. And a lot of times these stories sort of kind of just sort of come to a point where they take a break. And I don't know. I mean, maybe Wes Anderson is just working on a level that I'm not able to analyze. Maybe the reason that it constantly is shifting between black and white and color is because print magazines don't always have the budget to print every page in color, and that's like his weird in-joke. I don't know. That's just me sort of trying to reason it out loud. It just was like so much that I felt my brain kind of turning off because it didn't want to be working so hard. And that's like a weird response to me, because I like when movies give me work. It's just like it is so textured and fiddled with, and to a point that it distracted me maybe.
I can see that. I'm curious to see what we think on our rewatches for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Between this one and the new Soho. So
yeah,
we'll see.
All right, though. Let's get to Ridley, my boy.
Who let these two make a movie, bro? This is one of the most epically goofy movies I've seen.
Yes.
Where these two bozos literally came in It's a serious story, though, and I will get there because I know some people don't like having any other discussion but a straightforward one. But look, these two came in. They read this story, a true story about this incident that happened, about the last duel that happened, official last duel where two men fought to the death to see who would be crowned their honor and who was right, who was wrong. It is a story that is told in three perspectives.
Yes.
You have Matt Damon playing this really good soldier. You got Adam Driver playing his buddy, who makes it up the ranks higher than he does, but he doesn't have Matt Damon's girl, played by Jodie Comer. Mm-hmm. Above all of this is the goofiest performance from Benjamin Affleck that I have seen in decades.
It is amazing.
His accent slips.
Who cares?
It is incredible. You're watching this movie, and they're goofing off on set. And it turns out that there are several moments where one has to give a speech or kneel to the other, where they would literally ad-lib on set just to say, closer! And you, like, the first watch, before I knew any of that, you could just see it seething through the screen. I thought it was one of the goofiest movies in terms of the way that they told the perspectives. You had said the Rashomon style of telling. Ridley came in because they hired Ridley to do it because he had worked with him on The Martian, Matt Damon, and they're like, we want you to do that thing you do where you make it go through, where you are able to make it so expansive in this old-timey world. He came in and he said that he wanted to do the Rashomon style, that he wanted to tell it in different perspectives. And I think the first act to the second act is hilarious. The way that you see Matt Damon's point of view, the way that you see Adam Driver's point of view. When you first see Matt Damon and he tells everybody to go, I swore there was a second too long. And I was like, am I crazy? I swore he said, let's go, and nobody followed him. And then the way they play that off later is so good that I thought I was going to love this movie completely. I'm iffy on that third act, Zach. Really? I don't want to be that person, but surprisingly, the more and more I think about it, there is elements to it that I think are just redundant, and I don't think are as strong as what they were setting it up to be, because they are setting it up to whose perspective is correct.
Yeah.
Right? And then the end just kind of goes like,
this perspective.
You're an idiot for thinking it's this perspective, and why would you even think it's anything else? It's like, because we just sat through 2 hours of that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't like the choice to there's this particular title screen that comes up, and they do something with that title screen that I think undercuts some of the Rashomonic tension of the movie. I think I think the text of the movie is enough to tell you what the truth is without them having to outline what the truth is.
Or have to show you twice.
Yes, ultimately, I think that there was enough of those differences that I spotted that I found it compelling. Yes, it does get a little bit redundant, but ultimately, like, I just thought there were so many entertaining moments and entertaining scenes, and I did really love how it was constantly kind of like undercutting itself, and what that says about the way that people like to portray themselves, right? Because it's not just a telling of the story. It's a telling of the story they want it to be told. Yeah. And I think that's what's really clever about how this is done. So those are really awesome. Those are really pleasurable aspects of this to me, but I also kind of liked where it headed, and I liked that we do get this gladiator-esque final duel, which is really one of the most brutal sequences that we've gotten in a movie like this in quite some time. It's really good. I think it ends in a really interesting place for its characters, where you kind of want this sort of cathartic, redemptive moment where you get a big confession and everybody knows the truth, and the movie, I think, plays it a little bit more realistically in that bad people will defend themselves until they can't anymore. I see the movie's faults, and I just kind of don't care because I had a really good time with it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think a lot of people came in thinking that like these two made up the story. I'm like, no, it's based off a true story, and this would have been the one where they wrote the first two acts.
Exactly, and they very intentionally brought in Nicole Holofcener herself, a really talented screenwriter, to lend another perspective to what's going on here.
So again, I very much enjoyed the movie. It was definitely one for the last duel that you needed to see in a big screen for. But I can see Cinephile Davis says people who don't see huge difference in the last two parts, red flags. I think if you see a difference in the last two parts, because it's the same scene. I don't think you need to see the second one. The first one got the point across. I think if anybody doesn't see the point across in the first one, I don't know. There's a more spoiler discussion that could be had. I think it would be great to have a discussion with that, especially when it comes out on VOD, because there's a bunch of clips. Again, it's so crazy to have a movie where so many movies in 2021, they'll take place in the past, but you know that they're not speaking like they would back in the day. They're speaking with that 2021 writer's mindset. This movie was genius because when these bros are at the brothel, they are speaking not only like they would back in the day, but it's making an even stronger point about how they haven't changed. It's still the same types of dudes in power. That part of the movie is so, so, so good. It's just that it is playing this whose perspective do you believe in game, and then at the end it's like, screw you if you think it's anything else. Ridley Scott literally in one of the conferences told the guy to F off for thinking it could be anything else. And I think that's where it like abruptly becomes a message movie. Yeah. When you were living so much in the experience, like you said, of whose perspective and whose truth was there. And I think you didn't have to hold people's hand, like you said with that title. Yeah. I think we got it.
So, and this is maybe like a philosophical question then, because like I kind of took the perspective of like, I didn't like that choice, so I'm going to ignore that it's there entirely. And that's not what the movie, like I can't pretend it's not in the movie, but like ultimately it doesn't affect my enjoyment of it, if that makes sense. And like I don't know if that's philosophically like the right way to approach movies in general, that if there's like a choice you don't agree with, then like you can overlook it because there's all these other things there. But like it is kind of my perspective here, because it's such a small choice that I don't ultimately think affects the actual like text of the film. I don't know. I'm ignoring that aspect of it, but maybe that's also something that would keep me from enjoying it as much as I might on a rewatch, right?
Fair.
Yeah. Let's get to another one that I am a big fan of. One that I'm very curious to see what your thoughts are, because this one hit in a nice emotional spot, made me feel things, made me moved. Let me know what you thought about Come On, Come On.
Adorable.
It's beautiful.
This is, it's a beautiful, heartwarming movie. Look, I'm speaking as someone, Mexicans do not get raised to be able to lie about having to go to the bathroom and then not go to the bathroom. That would not happen in a household like ours. But nonetheless, like you really had this very intimate relationship between these two, of an uncle who's a journalist. He's going around different cities in America where he's interviewing people about certain aspects. And I really love those elements to it, where he's actually talking to kids and trying to get their perspective of their towns, be it in Detroit, in New Orleans. And I really enjoyed those excerpts. I thought they added a lot to the movie.
Yes,
and then how it's contrasted between him taking care of his nephew. There's a whole backstory with Scoot McNairy, who plays his father, and just the back and forth of how he's dealing with taking care of another person but also trying to respect them, and I think that those were probably the best parts of the movie, and realizing that you don't just argue with a kid or yell at a kid, but you try to connect with a kid. And there's one of the interviews that happens in the New Orleans bit where one of the kids is very quiet, and there's one of the interviewers who's helping out with it who like encourages the kid in a way where he ends up opening up and says one of the best lines in the interview segment. So, it was a really solid movie. Got to catch it at the Music Box. I'm very, very curious to see how it opens up, and how it does when it goes wide.
Devesh says he's very interested in this one. Who directed it, and what else have they done? HBG also said, I loved 20th Century Women. That is probably director Mike Mills's most famous film thus far, although he also did Beginners, which is the movie that won Christopher Plummer an Oscar a few years back. So he's kind of a director on the rise, still relatively new in terms of these bigger films, but definitely has like a type of movie in terms of these like very, very kind of like outward looking films about like youth and growing up and discovering the world. I really, really appreciated that element in Come On, Come On. I think the way in which he kind of draws a parallel between being young and having a big world to learn about, and being older and having to learn about the world through a young person, like that they're both going through this type of experience at the same time
Yeah.
together was really beautifully done, and it touched me. I'm very excited to see this one again. I don't know. I was very much on this movie's vibe. It felt, it was contemplative in the way that I like feeling, you know?
Hmm. I had a dude sitting next to me. He was by himself, just eating his popcorn. And the moment that they say "come on," the man went like the meme. But they say "come on, come on, come on." So this man started going. I was like, yo. So he really liked the movie. Shout out to that man right there.
Yeah. Do you recommend Beginners? I see I have it as a 3-star here on Letterboxd, but I kind of have fonder memories of it than that. I might just bump that up to 3.5 right now, because I think it's
Bro, I'd have to,
yeah, I was
I
just
have
gonna
to
say,
catch again.
I think it's a pretty beautiful movie. I think there's a lot of, it's really good performances. It's been a few years since I caught it, but another one of those movies that kind of makes you appreciate life in a weird way, and I like
Mhm.
Mike Mills in that life affirming mode.
Beginners always stands out to me because that was one of the last new movies that was at the blockbuster before he started shutting them down around me.
Damn, damn,
So I
crazy
just
how a
like,
movie can
I
transport you
just
like that.
I just see it right there.
Yeah,
Well, the final was that they had. Let me wrap up the what would this be? The top five that I had.
Great
Great
Freedom.
Freedom.
Yeah,
Yes, this I believe should have been one of the winners in terms of acting. It did end up getting the Gold Q Hugo Award because it's about this man. I believe it's like right after World War II, and he pretty much gets set up. He's at these public restrooms where they're doing different activity, hookup activity, but they're capturing them. They're filming them because it is illegal to be gay, and so he goes to prison. He kills his performance. If you've seen him in Christian Petzold's movies, he's been in Transit, he's been in Undine. I'm really banking on Franz getting some recognition in some of the awards. The road to the Oscars in some way, I highly doubt it'd be an Oscar, but I thought he killed it with this performance. You really, I mean, that poster is just fantastic. It really sums up the movie. As you're following him, not just in this prison, but just trying to, the way that he interacts with the different people who are around him. I think he's one of the best actors that we have working today. And I think this may be the best performance that he's given as you follow his turmoil. Highly, highly, highly recommend this one.
awesome.
Great Freedom. Another one that I thought was absolutely fantastic was Parallel Mothers. This was the first one that I actually caught in person for the fest,
Yeah,
and it's a pretty simple story of two mothers, both give birth at the same time, varying ages. One is the daughter of a mom who's like getting back into acting. She's really got this big role ahead of her, and then Penelope is a photographer whose partner works in archaeology. So you have this very interesting mother story dealing with their kids, and I don't know how much the trailer tells you, but the connection that they have of having their kids at the same time. But there's like this subplot. There's like what he actually wanted to make the movie about, which is the lineage and the certain things that the archaeologist gets into in this town. That their story kind of just is like the thing to get you into the theater, and
hmm
then he's got that message that sits in the back. And I really enjoyed it. I thought this was full of fantastic performances. There was a bunch of just really good tone shifts that they had throughout the movie. Um, and the homie Pedro continues with his Nespresso sponsorship. I saw it once and I thought, okay, maybe he just hit it off. No, Tilda Swinton made an Nespresso in the short film. Human Voice. They had the Nespresso pod in this one as well. My man's all in with the
maybe he's
Nespresso.
just a fan. He's just a fan of the product.
He went to TIFF that one year. He saw how many they had, and now it's in every single one of his movies. So dope. But no, I highly recommend that one. I hope it does pretty well. And I know that it didn't even get the nomination or the submission internationally
Yeah, from
because they ended
Spain.
up going. They ended up going with comedy or something. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I have to see the other one.
yeah. Always a shame when Almodovar doesn't get that kind of recognition, given what an icon he is. And this
Exactly.
is, I think, like a really solid film from him. Complex in a way, but also, like you said, like just kind of a simple story about motherhood. Um, there's definitely a lot below the surface to this film, but I don't know if you need to know all that to appreciate it. When I talked about it, when I saw it at New York Film Festival a couple of weeks ago, I talked about how there's all these elements about the Spanish Civil War and the legacy of these families who have dead relatives that, like, I don't necessarily have the real world knowledge to really influence my opinion of what he's talking about, but clearly he has some bigger things on his mind than just the story of these mothers who happen to meet in a hospital room.
And you would think it would have been heavy-handed, and it wasn't. That's why I was surprised so much, because he'll shift to that heavier storyline, and I don't know. I felt it worked. I thought he did a really good job with it.
Devesh asked any chance of a surprise Cruz nomination? I mean, she would deserve it for sure. She is so good in Almodovar's movies. I just don't see how a foreign film performance from a movie that doesn't even
have the submission from its country
would really have a good chance at getting into the Oscar race. And part of that is because we're very America-centric in terms of the movies that end up getting nominated for the Oscars, but part of it is also just like it's not necessarily going to be like this huge splashy performance that's like, this is the Penelope Cruz performance to end all other Penelope Cruz performance. It's another solid turn from her in Almodovar work.
Mm-hmm. Plus, seriously, and Eternals is going to get the nom, so there's that right there. My top three. I don't know if Mexico has chosen a submission, but damn do I hope it's Prayers for the Stolen. This is a movie about these three girls. You're following a main one, but it's really this group of girls who they're living in this town where they got the military, the government's coming in, but there's also all the drug lords, the cartels that are coming in. Which one's worse? I mean, they're really kind of victims to it all, to the point that they have to cut their hair. That's how you see in the posters for it. Mm-hmm. They need to cut their hair because in that way they won't know whether they're a boy or a girl, and that way they don't get kidnapped. They also work in the poppy seeds. The poppy fields. So they're the ones who are getting like all this opium and everything as a part of the way that they make their living, because just the fields are completely filled with it. I thought this was a fantastic movie. When we were watching it at the beginning, we had a very small press theater, and there was this dude who I'm pretty sure was, Latin descent in some way, and he was just riffing on Netflix, how much he hated Netflix, that Netflix wasn't allowed in Venice, but they brought the money, and now they've infiltrated all the film festivals because Cannes wasn't hosting it, all these different things. The man himself talked about a director who was getting like $80K, and how Netflix gave that director more money. I'm like, I feel like you're answering your own question. He's venting like crazy. The movie begins. Guess what we hear, Zach? Ba-boom. Y'all gonna see this in 2 weeks on Netflix. Give it a watch. It is a Netflix original, and I hope it's Mexico submission because the performances all around were fantastic, and the story was very well directed, very well done. And you even get a little cameo from my favorite Mexican film from last year as well, Non-Identifying Features.
Damn.
The boy, he's in here. He plays the teacher. So I was just like, oh, let's go. Talent knowing where to go. Meeting in another good project. But Prayers for the Stolen, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. Check it out.
Yeah, it looks like Netflix is killing it with these Mexican features too. They had what's it from last year? I'm No Longer Here.
I'm No Longer Here. So yeah, no, they're doing a great job. So I don't know what that guy was complaining about. What a goof. My top two, Zach. I don't even know what to say about these movies. These are movies I just want to watch.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about them. I want to watch
them. It almost spoils it to try
what am I to say?
Over-articulate what you feel about movies like these.
Zach, the worst person in the world won the Silver Hugo for Best Cinematography. They talked about it being shot in 35 mil, how they use natural lighting for a bunch of the stuff, and the people love that time bit is all I'll say. You follow 4 years in the life of this woman named Julie. She is not the worst person in the world.
No, right. No, she's not. Pretty ordinary, actually.
She's ordinary. She's right. But there is, I don't know, it's one of those journey movies. You're following her along different elements of her life. You have these discussions about, the tech world and how different it was back in the day where, we had tangible stuff. We weren't passing down ideas. Remember, we were passing down things. And I found myself being old because I was like, yeah, wait, damn it, I'm the guy now. These discussions of like, do you need to represent everything when you're talking about something as an artist? Do you show empathy? Do you not? I don't know. I thought it was a fantastic movie that I want to catch again and have a more. I don't even know if it's a spoiler talk with you, Zach. I just want to watch it with you, to be honest with You
We should
know,
just like do a movie date.
let's go. Worst person in the world. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. I believe this is the official submission for its country, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it is going to be Norway's submission, and Neon has distribution rights already. So, Neon is going to put a arm and a leg behind that one. Neon always with these
Neon's been killing it,
really
dude.
strong slates, especially in the international field. Like they had going back to the year that they had
Okay.
Portrait and Parasite. Like they are just absolutely killing the international game.
I see Titan. I see this making it.
Mhm.
I don't know what else they got underneath them, but like,
Flea.
they're gonna.
It's
Damn, bro.
good
The
year
whole,
for
the whole category
Neon.
gonna be Neon.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
Yeah, I talked about this a bit when I saw it a couple weeks ago, but yeah, I absolutely adored this film. I love the way that it kind of gives you the feeling of floating through her life, the way that I think a lot of millennials feel like they sort of float through their own lives. It's rare that a film is able to really capture romantic chemistry in a way that feels genuine, and this movie does that with two different characters, which is so crazy and speaks to
Yeah,
the
dude.
amazing performances, particularly from Renate Renaev. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that one anymore, but like I now love this actress and want to see her in a lot more stuff. I cannot wait to watch this movie again. I don't know if I said this 2 weeks ago. I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but I watched the movie during my digital 4-hour window, and Caitlin wasn't able to watch it with me because she was working. And then like as soon as it ended, I was like, "Okay, Caitlin, we just have to watch as much as we can during the rest of this 4-hour window because you are going to love this." And she only caught a little bit of it, but like now I made her really excited. And unfortunately, we won't get a chance to watch it again until February because Neon is putting out in February because they hate film fans, despite distributing a lot of really good stuff.
No, that sucks, bro.
I know. I don't want to wait that
Nah.
long. I don't
Hey,
want to wait.
but we told y'all to catch these damn film festivals
Mhm.
because some of these movies have these stupid release dates. Damn. No, and I was literally just about to tell you, the next time I'm seeing this, I think I'm gonna see it in the theater.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's gotta be February, damn. Okay. Hey, we'll keep y'all updated if another festival plays it. But yeah, no, Chicago would have been the spot to have seen it. $12 to catch one of the best movies in the comfort of your own house? Nah, should have done that. The one that they didn't have virtually, I think Zach caught it virtually, but I went and I sat down for all 3 hours of this movie.
Another Neon release.
It was the best movie of the fest.
I'm so
What? This one, the silver.
dude. I am so glad you vibed with this.
Bro,
What a
we
beautiful
said
movie.
A24 who? Neon has just ran with it, and it's unbelievable. Literally, what was the interception that happened earlier this year? Literally, just a couple weeks ago, with A24 picking up Pleasure, fumble in the bag, Neon picking it up. and
One
take
of our
that all the
favorite
way
movies
to-
out of Sundance. Now it's another Neon movie,
Damn, Neon. I'm about to just sign over to Neon.
right?
The winner of the Silver Hugo is this 3-hour movie called Drive My Car about a actor slash director who he's had a very good career. His wife is a playwright. They have a really good relationship. I don't know how much the trailer says, but nonetheless, he ends up taking a job in where, because he's losing his vision, he gets a chauffeur to drive his car. There's probably the best directed movie of the year.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to say anything else.
It's
3 hours long. Go watch it, experience it, enjoy all the little subtleties in it, and then rewatch it again because we went home and we are like, wait, the blocking in that one scene and that one character now understand. Fantastic.
There's such a pleasure in this movie from knowing who these characters are and knowing what they mean to each other and watching them sort of gradually get to a place of mutual understanding through their dialogue, right? Like the main guy ends up having a lot of conversations with this other man who he has like significant information about, and watching that dance of dialogue of these people who have these big secrets they're holding on to, these big feelings that they can't quite rid themselves of, is so well done and so articulated in such a way that resonates, that feels like real people. I was so immersed in just the conversation of this movie and the the emotions that these characters are feeling in a way that feels rare. You can really tell that Hamaguchi has a gift for this stuff. I believe he himself also comes from the theater, and it's just it shows in how these movies progress. It's it is a slow moving movie, but I don't know if I ever really felt bored. I kind of just I was kind of like in. It felt like it was on my wavelength, and I wanted to be talking to these characters and like living in those conversations. I cannot wait to see it again, because I don't know if I can't tell you what the movie is really about. There's so much in there, and I think it deserves to be thought over and analyzed.
Yeah.
So I just can't wait for the chance to do it again. It's a really beautiful movie.
And then on top of that, like we had said, I need to go back and revisit, or actually watch Ahsoka 1 and 2, which he did, I believe. Those are on Criterion. But he also did Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy, which I think our link is still live. I still haven't caught that one. Zach told me.
Dude,
this man,
so good.
This man had 2 movies at the fest.
Yeah.
2 movies. So
and they're both bangers.
So yeah, I'm just really excited to one, catch that one, catch this one again, because there was a lot in it that I very much enjoyed, and just the fact that it's not just there's like 3 different languages in this as well, not just what is it, Japanese? I believe someone speaks Korean. There's some English, and then there's Korean sign language as well.
Yeah,
there's so much going on in this movie. And I very much enjoyed it.
This is also one of those movies that hits you with the credits like 45 minutes in. It's just like, it's so good. It's so good.
When it did that, I just looked at each other like, this the one.
Yeah.
Drive My Car, hands down, my favorite out of the fest, but a really good fest altogether. I know that there was a lot of movies that I wasn't still able to catch, but nonetheless, shout out to the festival. They also, they had this whole little thing that they were doing. I had their little director's cut coffee that they were working with. It was all right, but Dark Matter, for those of you in Chicago, also had it was a whole combo pack where they had they even gave me this little chill thing, to go with it. Sneaking into the theater, I guess, coffee, cold cans, all this stuff. So I was all coffeeed out, ready to go to watch all these movies that were 3 hours and something long. But there was still so many more to catch. I know someone had mentioned Mad Dog. That one's still on my list. I really want to catch that. There were a couple of Mad God. I don't know if you've heard about that one. It's this.
I think you said Dog. Maybe I misheard you, but.
Oh, sorry. Well, another one would have been Power of the Dog. That's one that I still need to catch that I know is going to be coming out on Netflix. Memoria was the big winner. I did not get to go catch that one. And if I don't catch it in its theatrical parade,
never get a chance to see it.
I guess I'll never catch it. Damn you, Neon. You know what? I hate Neon. Forget Neon. All the homies hate Neon. But there's still several movies that I want to catch. A cop movie. Haven't been able to catch that, but I know that's on Netflix right now. Heard very good things about that. So overall, just a pretty solid lineup for the fest. And hey, I got the fest bug again, man.
I know, right?
I love virtual fest.
I know. And
nothing beats going back.
We've been doing these virtual fests, and it's been a lot of fun. It's really cool to have that access. I love the virtual festivals. Nothing quite being like at a film festival in person. There's nothing quite like the atmosphere, the feeling, just that the collective experience of watching something new and falling in love with it. Just like the chatter on your way out when you're in a great movie and you can tell that everybody else loves it too.
Yeah, can't beat it.
I hope to see you at Sundance, man. I hope we can make that happen.
Like Jack, bro, we have to go back.
We have to go back. All right, maybe we have time to answer a couple quick questions here before we get to our picks for the week. So hit us with your questions for the interview. If you've got any, leave them in that the live stream comments. And a reminder to the people listening to this later, watching this later, that you can always email us, intercutpod@gmail.com, to send in some questions that we will answer on the following week's show. Hit us up on social media. I'm happy to take questions from our social media, especially Twitter. Twitter's really easy. But also a quick shout out to those of you who are producer level patrons on our Patreon. We thank you so much for continuing to support the show. Y'all are great. Cademan, D.A. Zapata, Ewan, Tushar, and of course the producer level contributor, Awkward. Thanks so much for all of your continued support. on the
Appreciate it,
Patreon. And a reminder, you can head over to patreon.com/intercutpod to support the show for as little as $1 a month, and supporting the show for as little as $1 a month gives you access to our monthly hangouts, which will be happening later tonight after the stream. So if you want to come hang, throw us some questions, play a little bit of Cineclash with me and Art, you just got to go head over to Intercut's Patreon, or Let Me Explain's Patreon, and drop in a donation, and we'll send you that link. So that's that out of the way. Let's get to some questions. First one here is from Cinephile Davis. If either of us are watching the show Dr. Brain, it's a Korean Apple TV Plus show from the director of I Saw the Devil. I have you heard about this? I actually don't have this on my radar.
I've heard about this. I know because we had talked about how Apple's the best one when it comes to screeners. You boot them up, all of them are in 4K, and all of the episodes are there. Absolutely
don't even have to ask for it. It's awesome.
Don't have to ask for it. You're getting it in the best possible quality. And I saw all that was there, and I looked it up, and I saw it was from the guy who did I Saw the Devil. I don't even have an excuse for it to wait to rep. I got to start it. So I have heard about it. I don't know if you started watching any of the episodes, if you recommend it, but that is definitely on my radar. That's one of the ones that I'm going to binge. In terms of A24 The Island, I don't know what that is. But it is The Island that let me know that A24 does virtual screeners for all of their stuff, because The Island was on their virtual screener template thing for their app. So damn you, A24, back on the Neon train. Neon's always hooking up with whatever we need.
I don't know what A24 is. They just do all this different stuff. Like, they just seem to
really
kind
hard
of
to still be
try
the
a
cool
bunch
kid.
of stuff to just get people involved. I don't get it. I don't really understand. Somebody out there watch The Island and tell us, because I don't know if I can waste my time with that. Devesh asked, did you finish Only Murders in the Building? Any thoughts? Yes. Of course I finished Only Murders in the Building. I don't know if you've noticed this. Only Murders is actually quite the hit. Hulu says it's now its most watched comedy ever, which awesome for Steve Martin Short. I'm really happy to see them in a massively successful show, and to see a show that I really enjoy get this kind of response, because means we're just going to get more of it, and they've already confirmed that second season. I think they actually are starting to shoot that second season now, so that's exciting.
More than Palm Springs?
Well, series, not movie.
Okay, series.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that makes sense.
But as for the end of the first season, I thought it was excellent. I thought it maintained its quality. It still is kind of a tonal grab bag of a show, because at one scene it'll be a bit slapstick, and then another scene it'll be this murder mystery, and then another scene it's kind of like this pithy conversational humor. But I don't really feel like it ever hits a false note when it's juggling those different ideas. I just really enjoy it, and I think a lot of it comes down to just having a really talented cast of performers, most notably Martin Short and Steve Martin. Like, Steve Martin, one of our most gifted comic actors of all time, and he gets to do like a whole slapstick bit with the elevator in the finale that cracked me up. I really loved that first season of Only Murders in the Building. I'm very glad that they're making more of it. What did you finish it, or are you still working your way through?
No, I'm literally the episode right before the one that you said is done all in ASL, so I still got a good chunk, a good run to finish it, but I get a lot of recommendations for that, so good to know that it wraps up well. And I had no idea there was a season 2, so cool.
Yeah, very cool.
I like what Connor brought up. I didn't even think about kind of connecting it to Columbus. Like, it's not exactly there, but as big fans of Columbus, I kind of see what you.
Well, there's
I
like
say,
that,
yeah, be excited.
That conversational, contemplative nature that's sort of just like exploring some like philosophical ideas, but not in necessarily like a pretentious, heady way. There's similarities certainly to be drawn between Columbus and Drive My Car. So
the blocking. One of my favorite scenes in Columbus is when they're walking and there's the fences like right between them, and the more that they get to know each other, they end up right in the gateway right next to each other. There's a lot of beautiful blocking that's done, especially inside the car, for the movie Drive My Car. So, yeah, I think you're really gonna like it.
Yeah. HBG asks us, do you guys know anything about Park Chan-wook's next movie and TV project?
Not.
I believe the TV project stars Robert Downey Jr. That's basically all I know about it, is that Robert Downey Jr. is attached to the TV project, which sounds awesome. I mean, it's weird to think of Robert Downey Jr. doing a TV project in the first place, given he's like one of our biggest movie stars. But I'm very excited to see Robert Downey Jr. like become an actor again after spending a decade on autopilot as Tony Stark.
He talked all that smack.
He just booked that Chris Nolan movie, which, granted, that's not an indie movie, so he's not going to have to sit on any Apple boxes like he complained about in that one interview.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I also don't think that's really going to be Chan-wook Park's next vibe either. But he's a great director. I wonder even if the reception to Bong Joon-ho potentially makes Park Chan-wook's next project a little bit more high profile. Maybe whoever is behind it will feel a little bit more comfortable advertising it as like this big thing, because we've already seen the breakout success of something like Parasite. And even now you could even say Squid Game too, to add to the whole like Korean crossover drama.
Sheesh, bro. Squid Game just changed so much for so many people.
Yeah.
Just praying for proper subtitles.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, very curious to see what ends up coming from Park Chan-wook. Do we have any more questions here?
I've seen the vet should have asked about Spider-Man and Batman, how tiring it's gotten at this point. Look, I personally am excited, especially when you deal with Marvel movies. You know, you can't criticize one without them telling you that you hate all of them, but then you come back and you love one, and then it's like, wow, you just love all of this garbage. It's never a really nuanced conversation, but when it comes to Spider-Man in particular, I enjoyed Homecoming. Not a big fan of Far From Home. I have been anticipating what they keep hyping up for this movie. This idea of this Spider-Verse is like second to Avengers vs. X-Men to me. So I am beyond excited. I don't want to be disappointed. My heart has not been this open since The Dark Knight Rises, but I'm willing to take it all. They just dropped that new poster. In terms of Batman, I had just finished working on a video for Injustice, so I am looking forward to good Batman stuff. And I don't know if you've seen the trailers for The Batman, Zach. That score is so good. I am very excited for that movie. I think Robert Pattinson, I think he looks so goofy as Batman, and when he yells, it makes me laugh. Nonetheless, I'm so excited to see him don the cape. So
yeah, I mean, like anything, you know, I'm tired of bad versions of it, and I'm excited for good versions of it. The Batman looks like it's going to be pretty good from early looks from the trailers. I'm liking the vibes.
I love the Riddler, man.
And thus far, like, I've been mostly okay with the Spider-Man stuff. I mean, it seems kind of exciting, but I can see, you know, the same way that I kind of am a little bit tired of getting the deluge of Marvel stuff. I'm a little, like, I get superheroed out quite often. Granted, because Spider-Man and Batman are these gigantic properties, they tend to try and treat them carefully and not go into those projects like
big, bro,
without their without the right people attached to it. Like, so usually I'm there for those projects.
I have faith. Who's your favorite out of the three?
Spider-Man? I mean, you know, isn't it? Don't you always fall in love with your first?
Toby gang. All right, let's see what else we got.
Eli, I'm trying to pull up Eli's comments, but Ecamm is being annoying to me. Oh, there we go. Eli asks, have either of you caught The Sadness? I caught it Beyond Fest, and it's a trip. I missed it. Did you catch that one?
I played at Chicago. It was a night showing. I did not get to go to it, but I heard that it is crazy. So I'm going to take your recommendation, Eli, because that was the whole thing, that it was supposed to be super gory. So I am looking forward to that one.
Pink Sweets asks if we have seen the Chucky TV show. I haven't seen it. I saw that a bunch of critics were sent Chucky dolls, though, and I'm a little bit jealous. Although I feel like that would just end up being like a play toy for my dog if they sent me one. But people seem to actually like. People seem to actually be liking the Chucky show.
I'm looking forward to it because I know that the Chucky franchise has been split. You got the main guy who's still carrying it through, and I believe this show is still under him. But then you had that Aubrey Plaza one, where Mark Hamill voiced Chucky, where they had to do a whole redesign. That's the company trying to continue the franchise without this dude. So I'm waiting for it to wrap up, and I'm excited to visit the series.
Uh, and then finally we got from. Oh wait, never mind. That was earlier. Magnitude asked us if we've checked out Arcane. I haven't. I don't know about you.
People are hyping this thing up. So I looked at it. I was like, oh, it's like a League of Legends. Just there's Netflix sometimes does like these different things. They had a Resident Evil one that was kind of like an animated thing. I did not realize the hype behind this one. They're releasing it on a weekly basis. Alina saw the first episode. She said it wasn't that bad. So this is one that I guess I'm gonna have to check out and keep on my radar. So I don't know if you've caught the first three episodes, if you've heard good things. I never played League of Legends, so
Oh yeah, me either.
I don't know how deep into it gets.
Yeah. What's Matta asked if we caught We Are All Going to the World's Fair. We actually reviewed it during our Sundance episode, so you can go back to, I think it was in the midnight category, or maybe it was next, probably midnight, and check out our thoughts there. I think we were on the same page in that we didn't respond as highly as a lot of people did. Like, it really was one of the big buzzy movies out of Sundance, and I was a little underwhelmed. I think there's a lot of interesting ideas in it, but ultimately, like, it just kind of felt a little bit like minimal in its execution.
I could see that. I think I liked it a little bit more than you did. I like the vibe that it went for. I think it definitely felt like this is exactly how whatever this thing is would work within an internet environment. I thought they got the tone down right. You just get lost in it a little bit, and you're like, wait, what's going on now? Where are we getting to the next thing? But that is one that I'm curious to revisit. It played somewhere near recently as well, so I know that
it's been doing the festival rounds.
Since Sundance. So I mean, the whole year it's been doing a great job.
I think it was maybe a little bit too committed to its visual style for me, right? Like, it was.
Yes, but I don't see that as a bad thing. Like, even if it doesn't work for me, I was like, you know what? Shout out to y'all. Like, you did your thing. So, but I get what you mean.
Yeah, and I believe the director Jane Showbrun or something like that just signed on to a project with Emma Stone. So, maybe worth catching the movie just to see what's coming next, I guess.
Dope.
Yeah. All right, I think we'll just do this one last question and then head into our picks for the week. But Devesh asked, are there any directors whose filmography are a gold mine? I literally only just heard about Wong Kar-wai and am absolutely fascinated by this guy. Yeah, it's a pretty cool question, because like one of the benefits of, not necessarily knowing the whole world of film history is that then you can go back and fall in love with the director, and you have 20-30 movies to work your way through. I don't know about you, if there's anybody that comes to mind for you, like other than maybe some of the obvious choices. I know Hitchcock. For me, I mean, Hitchcock is obviously a gold mine. Something that I've been challenging myself to do is to catch a lot more silent era comedies, because I think there's just such an ingenuity in terms of the humor and the way they're filmed. I've been working my way through both through Charlie Chaplin's films, through Harold Lloyd's films, through Buster Keaton's films. Luckily, a lot of them are available on HBO Max, particularly the Chaplin films. There's so many up on HBO Max right now, so it's just a really nice way to like check in with something that is obviously integral to the progression of the medium, but like is also genuinely really good. Like, I think people sometimes view going back to silent comedies as like this big obstacle because you don't get the modern sensibilities, the modern cutting and whatever, but like the performances are just so amazing and on a level beyond what we get from our modern day performers. The lengths, it's like Jackie Chan-ish, the stuff that they're always doing. I don't know. I really love. I've really loved spending some time on those older films. As it's also like a nice palate cleanser, given how we're always just like binging these new releases. So, yeah. All right, so we are going to wrap this up with our picks for the week, give you some recommendations in the new to see, things that have just come out or are newly released. So, Art, where do you want to start us off in new to see?
Well, we have a theatrical, we have a Netflix one. If you are staying home, I would say boot up your Netflix and catch one of my personal favorites out of Sundance, which was Passing. This is the Rebecca Hall directed movie adaptation of the novella from probably what is it, like 100 years ago?
Yeah.
About these two women who pass, meaning that they're black, but they are able to pass as white. A lot has been said about the cinematography. They have admitted, it was a trick used to be able to get a lot across the screen, especially for Tessa. But I really enjoyed the performances. I was really surprised with her directing, and I think it is a super solid movie that did its rounds throughout all of the festivals. And now that it's coming to Netflix, I'd say it's definitely worth the watch. I'm hoping to maybe catch it in theaters because I want to see it. Probably like at a Landmark projected up. And I also want to go back and read the book because it's a pretty short book. It's not too long.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely recommend listening to Rebecca Hall's interviews that she's done throughout, kind of breaking down her history and her upbringing and her connection to the story. But yeah, I definitely put this one on your radar. If you got a Netflix account, this one will be streaming, I believe, come this weekend.
It's going to be on Wednesday, actually, November 10th.
Wow, look at that. All right, there you go. A couple days. On November 11th, though, the following day, will be in the theaters revisiting, for whatever reason, the director's cut of Rocky IV. 30 minutes of never-before-seen footage.
Wow.
In this one-night-only Fathom event, Zach. I'm a big Rocky fan. The Rocky IV is on HBO Max right now, so I am not rewatching it yet. I'm gonna go watch, see what the 30 minutes are, and then try to compare. Probably make a video on it. I am really hoping that I don't know. I'm kind of conflicted in this because this is the one where they fight right before him and Apollo.
Yeah.
And they freeze frame it, and they don't show you who wins. I'm kind of torn. I don't know if I want to know, but I am excited to see what could possibly be 30 minutes of uncut content that they've just like stored away. I got my tickets booked. This thing sold out all around me. I'm excited, bro. I had to move a play I had that night. I am watching Carrie Coon in a theater production of Bug, and I had to move the Carrie Coon because she'll still be there. I had to move it because this
Yo, I'm so jealous of you. Carrie Coon in her husband's play. Damn.
In her husband's play, bro. I can't wait. I'm so excited to see that. But I don't know if I'm more excited to see Rocky IV. Those are my picks for the week.
Yeah. I will second the pick of Passing, which I was also one of my favorites out of Sundance. I think it's a fascinating movie, and even beyond the element of passing and skin color, which is sort of like the center of the movie. There's all these really interesting elements of like jealousy and like resentment and that what that does under the surface of you that I found was really interesting. I kind of want to give this one another watch because I've also heard they've changed the cut since we saw it at Sundance, and I know that you and a few other people were not as. I was also a little bit like puzzled by the ending of it. I wouldn't be surprised to see if they like smooth that out a little bit. Yeah. I mean, I'm curious to check it out again. We do have a comment from Pink Sweets who said that she hated Passing. So look, there is conflicted feelings about this movie for sure, and a lot of good writing about the movie. That's one of the advantages of it having already done the festival circuit. So I would recommend watching it, and I would recommend reading more about it too. But I have another recommendation, which I believe is available on VOD already, and that is One Shot. It is a movie that is what its title says. It is what its title says, in that this entire film is done in one shot. It's a film about this elite squad of Navy SEALs who lead an extraction mission to retrieve a prisoner from a CIA black site when the CIA black site is attacked by a group of terrorists. this is their one shot to get him out, and they're going to do it all in one shot. The plot isn't that interesting and isn't that textured or dynamic. It's a very basic, like, army guy has to finish the mission thing. But what is really cool here is it's done with enough ingenuity and enough cleverness that it remains engaging throughout, and it remains interesting. It's not one of those one-shot movies where you feel them straining to make it work, where you feel them looking for places to add artificial cuts. This really does, like, I think they genuinely did most of this movie in one shot. There are a couple places where there's probably were some cuts, but like the way that the camera sort of dances around the action is so smartly done. It's obviously done by a guy who has a knack for how filmed action is going to look, because it's just showing you the elements you need. When it transitions from one character to a different character, it doesn't really feel like the whole movie shifting. It kind of like it's following the path of action in a way that feels really immersive, kind of. There's a moment in this movie about halfway through where one of the characters gets put into a holding cell and locked in there, and the camera follows him in there, and then an action sequence starts outside the cell, so they film the whole thing from behind the wiring. And it's such a silly, fun, immersive choice, the kind of clever filmmaking thing that you just would never see in a movie like Eternals. I loved those elements of it. It's not like gonna be a very deep story that like makes you think differently about things. There's probably some dumb cliches that don't really hold up on like scrutiny, but the action is really satisfying. It's visceral. It's awesome. It's really well done. It very, very much delivers on that front, and it's probably one of the better one-shot films that I've seen. Maybe not Birdman, but it's up there.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's about it for this episode of the Intercut podcast. We are going to hop over to our monthly hangout, so hopefully we'll see some of y'all there. But thanks for joining us, those of you who did join us. Let's see if I don't know if there's any other questions we can hit on our way out, but otherwise I'll pull up
Magnitude just wanted to know how good Rocky 2 was and why you should be watching Rocky 2, because he's got the whole collection, but homie hasn't seen any of them. How about Rocky 2? It's got the best part of Rocky 1, which is the ending in the intro, and then it's Rocky 2, which is the best one. And I agree, don't watch 5. 5 is actually... No, I just skip 5. And I go straight to Bebola.
There you go. All right, so that's it for this episode. That's it for this week's show. You can catch more from me, Zach Shevich, by following me on Twitter, Instagram, or Letterboxd at ZShevich. And Art, where can people find more from you?
You can find me over at LME Explained. You can find me on Thursday watching the Rocky 4 cut with the 30 minutes of glorious footage that are going to be showing. And soon, in a 143 IMAX theater, hoping to finally catch the version of Dune I should be catching. And then talking about it here on the Intercut podcast.
You can listen to every episode of the Intercut podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, whatever your favorite podcatcher is. I like Overcast. And then make sure you're subscribed not just to the audio podcast, but to the video feed as well on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/IntercutPod, where you can catch our bright smiling faces as we run through the latest in entertainment. Find new episodes of Intercut every Monday, and please leave us a comment, like the video, consider heading over to iTunes to give us a much requested 5-star review. Shout out to our listeners in Vietnam. I saw y'all in the comments earlier. Shouts to Connor. We really appreciate that. And yeah, thanks for listening to us. It helps us get on the film and TV podcast charts. Like our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages. Support our Patreon. All of them are at IntercutPod to get updates throughout the week from Art, from me, from all of our guests here on Intercut. Thanks again, and until next time, on the adventures of Little Lord Fauntleroy.